And we welcome you to another day, and you're looking live at New York City, where they know who Joe Burrow is in Times Square. He'll be not far from there Saturday night, accepting the Heisman Trophy, perhaps by the largest margin in history. Well, Reggie was actually the we were talking about Troy Smith earlier. I forgot Reggie's doesn't count. He won by 91.8%. Troy is the official leader at 91.6. Marcus Mariota a couple of years ago wasn't bad either. And we say hello to you. Glad you're with us here on a Tuesday. We are live in New York too, but not exactly in Times Square, a little bit farther south of that. But Joe Burrow's going to be the talk of this town. He's the talk of college football. And let's get off. We are off and running right now as we continue with the Tuesday program. Georgia has a new offensive lineman coach. Sam Pittman's gone, and Matt Luke is in. Pretty good replacement. One of the better line coaches around. Matt Luke was the Ole Miss head coach. Now he works for Kirby Smart. And breaking news, Chad Morris, formerly of Arkansas, is now at Auburn. This had been expected. He's not the head coach, of course. He is the offensive coordinator. He's a longtime friend of Gus Malzahn, and it will be interesting to see what Chad is able to do down on the plains. Well, we say hello to you. A lot to do today here in rather cold and rainy New York City. We're glad to have all of you with us. So who's the greatest coach of all time? Have we had this conversation? ESPN has released its list. Frank Leahy at 10, Woody Hayes, Bowden, Paterno, Bud Wilkinson at 6, Eddie Robinson 5, Tom Osborne at 4, Knute Rockne number 3, really? Nick Saban, and the GOAT of all time, that's Paul William Bryant Jr. Saban loses a game, and he's already loses his role as the greatest coach of all time. We got an all-time guest list today. Eli Drinkwitz, the new Missouri head coach. He's also a National Coach of the Year finalist. Matt Rule from Baylor. Always great to talk to him. Ken Rogers, Vice President of NFL Films. He was part of the amazing Saban and Belichick. Josh Booty, former LSU quarterback. And your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Hope you'll jump on board and we'll get your thoughts. Jim starts us off in South Carolina. Hello, Jim. Welcome to our program and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How is everybody?
We're doing great. Thank you.
First-time caller. Been listening to you and watching you for about 5 years. Cannot believe I got through.
I'm really glad you did.
I watched yesterday, and I heard you make a statement saying that if Coach Kiffett comes to Ole Miss and beats Saban, that he is going to be king forever. My question to you is, if he's going to be king forever, Dabo's beat him twice. Does that make him chopped liver?
Yeah. Well, listen, we're mainly talking about within the SEC. Dabo has beaten Saban twice. Saban has beaten him twice. That is correct.
Okay. Well, just thank you for taking my call, sir.
Rich is also in South Carolina. Hello, Rich.
Hey, Paul. I was looking at Jim's name on the TV screen. Got a little confused there. Is it not true that the number one seed in the playoff has never won?
Through 5 playoffs, the number one seed has lost every single time. That is correct.
I thought that was correct. I'm just curious about something else. I've seen it said at least 3 times this weekend, is that Ohio State and LSU were jockeying for position in number 1, so they didn't have to play Clemson in the first round. Do the analysts think they're that dangerous?
Do the analysts think Clemson is that dangerous? Yes, they do.
Yeah. Okay, I was just curious. I mean, I know any given day somebody can beat another team, but I just didn't know if they thought.
Well, Rich, it's not so it's not so much just about Clemson. It's about playing Oklahoma over Clemson. Oklahoma is a significantly inferior team compared to Clemson.
I got you. Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Well, glad to hear from you. I really do appreciate it. Let's go to Tim, who is next up. Tim, welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Paul. How do you feel about, like, all the time that Clemson's defensive coordinator is going to get to prepare for Ohio State? And, like, I think that he's going to hold them down to, like, if he holds them under, like, 24 points, I think they're going to just run away with it, Clemson is, man.
Listen, Tim, I mean, everyone is certainly knee-deep in opinions right now, and we're, 2.5, 3 weeks away from the game. I don't know. I've thought about the games like you have, but I'm willing to wait a couple more weeks before we get too deep into the absolutes. Great to have you on. Will is in Mississippi. Will, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call. You know, we've been talking a lot about coaches, and we've been talking a lot about seedings here. And I just think it's interesting about how each respective coach responded to their victory Saturday night. We know before the game, Dabo kind of said that, you know, he's like the Rodney Dangerfield of college football. Nobody respects him. And I know why he's doing that. He's trying to get an edge. He's trying to put a chip on the shoulder of his team. But then I think it's interesting that Orgeron, after LSU beat Georgia, said, we'll go any place and play anybody at any time. You just tell us where to go and we'll be ready. And then his quarterback kind of reflected those or mirrored those comments by saying, you send us to Canada and we'll play on a gravel lot. But the most interesting is when Darren Day started giving a litany of reasons why he should be number one. Now, everybody's scared about playing Clemson in the first round. Did Orgeron kind of project that feeling to you? Or could Darren Day be sending a message not only to the committee, but maybe to his team that, man, maybe we don't want to play Clemson?
Well, listen, I don't want to say you're overthinking it, but I think Ryan Day was just in a posturing mode. He was number one all season long. He knows he blew the first half, and he was just trying to make a case. But the bottom line, nobody cares what these coaches have to say. The committee's not listening to them. Therefore, I think Orgeron has taken. I don't think the team is overly concerned either. I really don't.
Okay.
No, I say that because the game isn't tomorrow. Now, I mean, whatever was said Sunday is in the wind by the time we get to the game on December 28th. Hey, thank you for the call. I do appreciate it. Michael is in Tennessee. Michael, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how are you? I'm Alabama, class of 82, and I've been trying to get through since after the Iron Bowl. Let me tell you how all us real Alabama fans feel. We've won 5 of the last 10 national championships. We played for 3 more. We've had 2 Heisman Trophy winners. 98% of every team in the country would die to get to the college playoff one time, much less win one in a generation, and would dream of a Heisman Trophy winner. The dynasty ain't over. This year is, like you said and everyone else said, injuries caught up with us, youth on defense. Saban isn't going anywhere, and we'll be back next year. Roll Tide.
Fred is up next in Texas. Hey, Fred.
My man, Paul, thank you for taking my call today, brother. And God bless you, but man, hope you're feeling better. You sound so much better.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you so much.
I wanted to give a ring. First of all, congrats to all the Tigers. I mean, from Coach Orgeron on down, everybody on the staff, and the hardware coming in. They got to get a few U-Haul trucks to bring it all back to Baton Rouge. But I could not let the day go by without talking about something that you and your team have probably already seen it. The boys in the booth, I'm surprised they're not talking about it yet, and that is the latest hype video from LSU. Have you seen it with Tyrann Mathieu and Lil Boosie in the background?
I have not seen it.
Well, I tell you what, I got to give a shout-out to Will T. Stout. That's at Will T. Stout, S-T-O-U-T. He's the guy behind these videos. And, Paul, this thing is trending on Twitter. and Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, is just phenomenal. But nobody puts together hype videos like LSU. And I think that it's really symptomatic and emblematic of the way that LSU has approached everything this year from top to bottom, leaving nothing to chance, excellence, and really the attention to detail that Coach Orgeron learned from his first stop at Ole Miss, that he had to get better at it. But I just want to say to you, Paul, that you have changed your opinion on LSU, and I want to know, what is the number one reason why? Is it just the offense? Because you've always thought they had a great program.
No, I think most of it's really Coach Orgeron. I just, in watching him this year, have now convinced myself what friends in coaching have told me for many, many years, that he is a superb coach. I mean, sometimes you just have to see it to believe it. Fred, you understand that. And now that I've seen it, I have no doubt. This is not the same Ed Orgeron that we used to kick around and make fun of 2, 3, 4, 10 years ago. This guy knows what he's doing.
Well, obviously, I agree with you, and I'll give you the second part of my two-piece, and that is something you and I touched on about a month ago, and I'll ask you now. Has the tide, no pun intended, been turned, and is LSU now the destination program in the SEC?
Fred, a week from today, I may be able to give you a better answer. I think Alabama is still going to close very well in recruiting. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that the door is closed at Alabama, but I think with a national championship, LSU is definitely going to become the it program. Yes.
Well, look, I appreciate you, and I want to say to all the Alabama fans out there, you've had a heck of a run. Miss Phyllis, I want to say hello. And all the Georgia Bulldogs fans, let me tell you, I hope that you carried your colors of black and red back to Georgia with pride, because they had a hell of a season too. And Paul, Paul Finebaum, remain a hell of an American. Thank you, Paul. Love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Fred. Great to hear from you. We are heading to a break now. We're off and running on this Tuesday afternoon.
There's no quarterback in college football playing better than the kid at Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. That is.
I don't agree with that, but go on. I'll let you keep talking.
I love it.
Whoa, whoa.
Burrow's okay.
Can't run from it.
He's running.
There's no running back
away.
playing better in college football.
He's done.
And there's one defense. There's one defense in the country.
Oh, gee, did he really just say that? Come on.
Sit down.
Let me bring Marcus back.
I'd like to stay.
Yeah, so Paul Finebaum joining us now, and your reaction there to what Dan said, kind of similar to what Marcus did yesterday. Here's the thing. I think we know that Burrow's a runaway, but Greeny, what do you want to ask Paul?
What was that reaction?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm always amazed when Dan makes these mild statements. I remember last year, Tua was LeBron James. Now it's, who is Trevor Lawrence? Is he the Kobe of this generation?
I haven't pegged him
I mean,
yet.
if you're asking me to say something nice about Trevor Lawrence, I'm contractually obligated not to say anything good about Clemson. But listen, it's a fair conversation. I just didn't see Trevor Lawrence play anyone this year where I could make a value judgment. The last time I saw him in a competitive game was against the University of North Carolina, and prior to that it was Alabama. So Dan, you're welcome to your opinions. You're obviously here a lot more than I am.
Doesn't it get a little bit stale that we only go, well, he hasn't played the guys that other people have? Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that Clemson has not
he's been playing junior college teams all season.
I think that's a little extreme.
Okay.
But everyone knows that he hasn't played the schedule
but that's okay.
as Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow is I was the one 5 weeks ago, he said, runaway Heisman, give it to him, and he'll be the #1 pick. Before you were saying it, Paul. And so I think to take the shot at Trevor Lawrence and go like, I just haven't seen him play anybody. He dismantled Notre Dame and Alabama last year in the playoff. I mean, beat him by 27, beat him by 28.
Last year.
He's never lost.
He hasn't broken a sweat.
He's having a better season.
He hasn't broken a sweat in 4 months.
He's having a better year this year than he had last year.
Desmond, one game to win. Who are you taking?
Let me be the voice of reason.
Oh, please.
Let me be the voice of reason. Coming into
away.
this season, the Heisman Trophy was Trevor Lawrence's to lose.
Correct.
Everyone loved Trevor Lawrence after he dismantled Alabama's defense. That should tell you how his season has gone so far this year. He's not even a finalist. So to say he's playing better than any quarterback, I think, is just a little far stretch. He is having a fantastic season. There's no doubt about that. The competition is the reason why that's why the committee put them at 3, okay?
Of course.
One game to go, though, Laura, to answer your question. I will have to go with Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow right now is more battle-tested this season.
I always liked you. And we welcome you back. Glad you're here on a Tuesday afternoon. A little bit cloudy. A little rain, snow is expected overnight, but that could be anywhere on the East Coast or in the Midwest. Glad you're here, and let's continue with more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Mike is in Bristol, Tennessee. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Paul. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much.
The four playoff games, which I certainly like, I believe that put an end to the 8-game or 16-game thing coming up in the future because, I mean, the 5, 6, 7, and 8, I think they basically played themselves out. So I think 4 is good.
Well, listen, I'm glad you. There's no right or wrong answer this year. I think 4 is enough. Some years it may not be. If you had 8, then we would be debating about 7, 8, and probably not very feverishly, but we would be talking about it.
Yeah. One other quick thing on the Heisman, I certainly would like to see them go through the end of the entire season before they gave that award away because I saw something today where Trevor Lawrence, and I know you're not a huge fan, but he was ahead of Burrow in 5 different categories up through this past weekend. And, if they end up playing each other, that would be a great way to kind of even it out or see who's really the better of the 2 players. You agree?
Well, here's the problem, and I do agree, but the Heisman has a specific slot on the calendar. It's a TV event, and if you held the Heisman a week after the national championship game, it would very likely lose most of its meaning.
Well, you still got the Army-Navy game that day, so there's still a few things going on.
Well, no, I'm not saying. I'm saying that if it wasn't this weekend and it was on January 17th, would it really have any impact?
Oh, yeah. To me, it certainly would. And I don't agree with the 900 or 1,000 voters. That really diminishes the entire award. I think there should be, basically college coaches and sports writers like yourself voting and keep it less than 100.
Well, listen, Mike, the Heisman, here's how the Heisman is constructed. Every state has X number of votes based on the number of, I think, teams in the state or Power 5 or used to be Division I. Every former Heisman winner gets a vote, so you're talking about 50 or 60. And I don't have a problem with a large number of people voting. I've never seen yet that it mattered too much. Thanks for the call. Do appreciate it. Claire is in Mississippi. Hey, Claire.
Hey, Paul.
Hi there.
I can't believe I finally got through. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
Love you so. Wanted to get your thoughts about the new hire over at Georgia. We lost our offensive line coach. Pittman left, and I can't say that I'm too sorry to see him go. But what do you think about bringing in Matt Luke?
Well, Matt Luke's going to Georgia, so yeah, they've already announced that, so that's a done deal.
Yeah, I know. Do you think that's a good hire?
Of course. Listen, I think Matt Luke's a really good coach. He's a player's coach, and I think it's a good place to land. He already starts with a good foundation, and listen, I hope Matt one day gets back to becoming a head coach. He's one of my favorite coaches, but he just got caught up in a political whirlwind in Oxford, as you well know.
Yeah, he seems like a super great guy, and that was just a stupid player move that I think he bore the brunt of. Well, with a new line coach coming in, do you think it's time to make any other changes over there to make us put us over the top?
Claire, I'd like to see a reevaluation of the offensive philosophy. What about you?
There you go. Oh, yes. I was hoping you would say that. I say it every game. I'm sitting here watching the games, and I'm thinking, and I say to my husband, I'm like, you know what? If a middle-aged mother can sit here on the sofa and predict what calls are coming, then there's probably a problem with your offensive coordinator or your golf player, you know?
Yeah, there's no. Hey, listen, thanks for the call. I do appreciate it. Paul is next up in Iowa. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul. How we doing?
We're doing great. Thanks a lot.
Hey, I got two questions for you. Being an Arkansas fan, kind of funny to call before. Pittman, always loved him when he worked under Brett Bielema. I think it's a great hire. Do you think it's a great hire? And the second question I would have with that, since Pittman, he's been a great recruiter for wherever he's went, will that hurt him being a head coach? Will he be as a good recruiter as a head coach as he was as a offensive coordinator? Or do you think that'll help him knowing that he's the head dog or head hog?
Listen, I think Pittman is a mystery, and I don't know him very well. I don't know him at all. So it's virtually impossible to make a prediction. I try not to make just blanket. I think he's going to be great. I think there are a lot of doubters about him, and his press conference yesterday was fairly low key. Hopefully we can interview him here where I think we'll get a better idea of how he responds on a one-on-one basis. Hey, thanks for the call. Hate to run. We're up against a break. More to come. More of your phone calls after this.
The Lane train is back to the SEC. Lane Kiffin has signed on to become the head coach at Ole Miss after leading Florida Atlantic to its second Conference USA championship, and this is something that will get a lot of attention because of Lane Kiffin's long-standing history in the SEC in a variety of places. A brief stint as the head coach, of course, at Tennessee, and then a successful stint as the offensive coordinator in Alabama. And Nick Saban's assistants have historically had all kinds of trouble with him, but I think you think this is going to be different this time.
Yeah, remember one thing. A couple of years ago, Lane Kiffin got the FAU job, and he coached in the semifinal game, so he quits. And he still got fired by Nick Saban because he lost interest right before the final. I think it ended up costing Alabama a national championship. But Lane Kiffin is obsessed with Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban is obsessed with him. And Greeny, I firmly believe that of all these disciples, and we've talked about them ad nauseum between Kirby Smart and Jimbo and so many others, that Lane Kiffin is going to be the first Saban disciple to beat the GOAT. I'm not saying it will happen next year, but it's going to happen because he will spend every moment. He'll lose 11 games to prepare for that one. And I think Saban's not intimidated by people, but he's going to look over there and go, I don't want to play Lane Kiffin.
He's like a gnat for Nick Saban, isn't he? And in the best, most respectful way that you can be a gnat. I mean, here's the thing about Lane.
A gnat?
I think when you look, like a GNAT. Anyway, when you look at what he brought to the SEC, that was part of really the shift offensively in the entire league that then made all these other teams, Greeny, have to decide that they've got to do big changes with their programs. And I do think that Lane will be obsessed with Coach Saban. There's a way that Saban looks at Kiffin with respect, but he also can't stand him.
I had someone close to Nick Saban tell me once that he had to get rid of Kiffin before the national championship game because he was like your recalcitrant 16-year-old who just grabs the keys to the Ferrari and forgets to turn the garage door open and he goes right through it.
Kiffin's matured a lot, though, since then, though, I think. At FAU.
Is this a good move? I mean, people will ask this at Ole Miss because of the history involving Kiffin. You like the move?
They were 4-8 under Matt Luke. This is a brilliant move. I mean, you hate to hire a coach to win the press conference, but this is Lane's 5th head coaching job, 4 in college and 1 with Al Davis at the Oakland Raiders. I think it's a fantastic move.
It is his, and you can take this however you wish.
Glad you're back. Well, glad all of us are here. I'm glad all of you are here. I'm here every day. And let's continue with more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Greg is in Myrtle Beach. Greg, thank you. Good afternoon.
Paul, I'm telling you, I'm about to say something I never, ever, ever thought I would say. But after the last 2 weeks of first Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, and then listening to Dabo Swinney and the Clemson fans living here. Listen, I'm an SEC football fan. I ain't got a dog in this fight. But after the last 2 weeks of listening to them, I am the biggest Ohio State football fan you would ever want to meet until after that Clemson game. I'm telling you, I'll go buy Ohio State stuff I'm so sick and tired of Harbaugh and Sweeney. Poor old Dabo. It's absolutely ridiculous. And their fans, I'm telling you, I watched Ohio State the second half of that Wisconsin game, and I'm telling you, they can beat Clemson. You have a great day, Paul. Thanks for taking my call now.
Thank you very much. Great to have you on. Craig is in Ohio. Hello, Craig. You're on the air.
Hi, Paul. Hey, I had a little thought. How about we get a little SEC Big Ten rivalry going on? We'll play your games down in the heat, and then when they have those cupcake games they have in November, come up here and play Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan in the cold.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Well, can we work it out? Can you do any of it?
I don't think I have the power to do any of that, no.
Oh, you got a lot of power with me, Paul. I'm watching your show about every day anymore, and we love you up here. Keep it up.
Thank you, Craig. I do appreciate it. We go from Ohio to Alabama, and Greg is up now. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. It is actually snowing up here as we speak, which is kind of a rarity for North Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
But I heard Fred's call earlier, and that was wonderful. You know, LSU fans have been wanting to get back to the pinnacle for so long, and now they're at the doorstep, and it's refreshing to hear a fan base that is actually excited about being in the playoffs. And, you know, this is the time of the year where you're getting all these Clemson callers, and not one of them is happy to be where they are, Paul. Why is that?
Well, because their head coach will not let them enjoy it. He's always got to play the woe is me card. He's won 2 of the last 3 national championships, and he acts like he's the head coach at Georgia State.
Well, Clemson is as relevant right now as it has ever been in the history of football. And fans should be able to enjoy what is going on right now because it doesn't last forever. And as an Alabama fan, we know that all too well. Because before we had Nick Saban, we had 20-plus years of mediocrity and downright disaster in Alabama. So when I was driving home today, I heard these callers, and it just reminded me this is that time of year where not one of your Clemson callers are going to call in being thankful about anything, but being upset and kind of passive-aggressive about where they are in the playoffs or this guy's not being considered for the Heisman and that kind of thing. So the SEC fans need to buckle up because it's going to be a long few weeks before we get there, Paul.
Well, do appreciate it. Thank you, Greg, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheryl is on the phone next. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Okay. When you started your show today, I just have a question about the list of the 10 greatest head coaches. And
yes.
I believe you said that Nick Saban was not on that list.
No, I said Nick Saban was number 2 on that list.
Oh, okay. Okay. I misheard then. I just thought that. But anyway, I just wondered, he was just named the decade, USA Today decade of the coach, decade of the coach of the decade.
Yeah.
USA Today, coach of the decade recently. So I was real proud of that. So he is number 2 on the list behind Paul Bear Bryant. So
I'm glad to hear. By the way, one thing that I do admire about the service polls, unlike the college football playoff poll, is that they do have transparency. And the USA Today coaches poll released its standing. It released the coaches' votes today, and there are a lot of interesting ones. But I thought the most interesting was Nick Saban of Alabama. Have you seen or heard what he did? This is Nick Saban's ballot. He had LSU number 1, Ohio State number 2, Clemson 3, Oklahoma 4. Guess who he had 5th? Alabama, ahead of Georgia at 6, Florida at 7, and Auburn at 8. So Nick Saban voted Alabama over Auburn Alabama at the 5 position, Auburn at the 8 position. By the way, it doesn't mean anything, but that was his mindset. Thought you. Ken is up next. Ken in Louisiana. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Paul. Great to talk to you. It's the first time
Thank
caller. Glad I got through.
Great to have you.
I wanted to say that when they first hired Coach O, I didn't know a lot about him. Only what you kind of heard at the press that some people were doubting him. Maybe he wasn't the right guy for the job. After I learned more about him, who he was, his history, and where he was from, I really started to understand who he was. Of course, being a Louisiana boy, we're probably going to at least try to love him. But he has a personality that, working with his team, that he gives you the belief that if he could, he would get down there in the trenches with you and dig it out. And I believe those young men have really believe in him. I think he believes in them, and they're willing to go to war for him. Also, you have Georgia fans coming in, calling in after the game, and a lot of us Louisiana fans, by all of us, really know, exactly how they're feeling now. For the last 6 or 7 years, it's been tough. It's really been tough. We're back up at the top, and things are going great for us, and I hope that we can sustain it. One thing, do want to mention a little bit about Coach Saban. That Coach Saban, when he was at LSU, really put LSU back up at forefront of the national conversation. A lot of the LSU fans don't like him because after he left and went to Miami and then he come back to Alabama, that was something that that really got, I guess, put a bad chip on the shoulder for him. But he did, in my opinion, put LSU, back in the forefront as obviously as a national champion and back to, toward the top of the polls and being recognized as a national power again.
Well, thank you very, very much. Appreciate the call. Nice of you to join us. Let's continue. Leah is in Baton Rouge. Hello, Leah.
Hello, Mr. Paul. At this late in the season, when you're talking about people who are, banged up and injured, is there enough of a difference in locker rooms, training facilities, and people who are in the training camps and medical personnel to make a difference in terms of the Final Four, or are we talking pretty equivalent personnel?
In terms of the 4 teams remaining?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think there would be some difference. I don't think there's any question that there might be a talent drop off when you go from 3 to 4. I think the top 3 teams are pretty similar.
It's just that we're looking at such pretty equivalent teams, and I think that at this late in the game, it might make a bit of a difference.
Listen, there are differences, Leah, I can assure you. There's a lot of talent on all 4, but I think 3 of those teams have a lot more talent than the other one. Hey, thanks for the call. We have to break. More to come. More of your phone calls at 855-242.
Well, there's dread because it's Alabama, and what happened to Ohio State is obviously in their kind of collective consciousness, and so they see Alabama in the same light, but at the same time they see it as an opportunity to, get a win and finish off the season again with 10 victories. So, I think I think they look at it from a very mixed perspective, but it's also because of the stakes of the bowl game have been reduced, obviously in light of the playoff, and in general, I think that the Michigan and Alabama thing still resonates, but it just doesn't resonate to the same level as it would have if it was the previous bowl system. I mean, Michigan has everything to gain, really nothing to lose, whereas Alabama, they really don't have anything to gain, and I don't think they have much to lose either. But, perception-wise, I guess Jim Harbaugh could try to sell it as something of a major victory for his program and use it on the recruiting trail. But, I mean, I don't know what kind of recruit is really going to make their evaluation off of the Citrus Bowl. And I don't know if you'd want to sign a player like that anyway. I mean, I think it's, the defense obviously took a major step back. I do think that was a byproduct of the injuries and such. I mean, the inside linebackers are very, very important to that defense just for what they do and how they coordinate everything from the pass coverage standpoint and doing the run fits and all that kind of stuff on the defensive side. And so I think that was a major blow to the team was losing Josh McMillan and Dylan Moses, in training camp essentially. And so it's that really kind of set them off, on the wrong foot. And then obviously everything kind of hinges on Tua. And, Saban had been kind of trending towards this direction where the offense took more or became more powerful than the defense. If Alabama had the generational defense that it had in 2016 mixed with the offense and even with Mac Jones at quarterback, I mean, I think that team's in the playoff. But, considering what they lost on defense early in the season, combined with the injury to Tua, I just think it was too much to overcome. But I don't think you can make any kind of definitive statements about where the program is. I think they might take a step back a little bit next year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're back in, the CFP in 2021.
Welcome back. We're live here up in the East Coast. Let's grab some more calls. So Nick Saban has voted in the football coaches poll. This is what it is if you haven't seen it. He went LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, and then he went Alabama ahead of Georgia, Florida, Auburn. The College Football Playoff Committee did not agree with him. Always pushing his team. Billy is up next.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy, you're on the air.
Yes, okay. Coach, Paul, I'm asking, you three think the Alabama dynasty is over?
No, what I've said is I think the window is closing. I think we may be parsing over words, but I think the dominance of Alabama is over. Whether they'll win a championship or not, I think it's still possible.
Yes. I think Alabama is going through a little. Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm going to ask you about.
Yeah, I think we heard you, Billy. Thanks for the call. Harry is up next. Harry, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but last year when Army played Navy, I think the gentleman's name was Wojciechowski from ESPN. Did a pretty good show with you on the Army-Navy game. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Is that who that was?
Yeah, Gene Wojciechowski.
Yeah. Will we be getting a taste of him this year, or do you know if he's on the schedule or not?
I haven't really checked, but he usually covers the game, Harry.
He did a great job last year. I really enjoyed it. Learned a lot about that series. Okay, Paul, I'm enjoying the show, and I just wanted to mention again, I know everybody said this, but I really enjoyed the last Friday show with Mr. Foxworthy. That was awesome, and the only other thing I'm going to say is, in the words of the late Hap Lawley, roll green wave. Thank you, Paul.
Harry, thank you. Yeah, I thought, appreciate all the comments. Danny and Mark Kubiak did a fantastic job putting last Friday's show together. Let's continue with more calls. Scotty is up next. Hey, Scotty.
Hey, Paul, first-time caller. I hope you hear me.
I can.
Good deal. My son-in-law works at the Ole Miss golf course over in Oxford, and you signed a book for my daughter a couple years ago, and she got some pictures with you, and that's one of my Christmas gifts. And I want to thank
Oh
you
wow,
for that.
I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, you were over in Oxford at one of the bookstores, and she got a book and got it signed for me and got pictures. I really thank you for it. My question was, now that we got Lane Kiffin after we beat Mississippi State, do you think Moorhead loses his job next year?
Well, I think if he has a season similar to this one, he might. I mean, he kept his job by beating Ole Miss. It's really that simple.
I agree, 100%. But, hey, I'm really excited about Lane Kiffin. I was a big Freeze fan, but I'm even more excited about Kiffin. I just wanted your thoughts on it.
Well, I'm glad to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Let's get some more calls here. And Bobby is in Louisiana. Hey, Bobby.
Hey, how you doing, Paul? Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
What I'd like to speak about is all these teams in the SEC that's in these bowl games, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Alabama, Texas A&M. I just would like to say to all those players that no matter what bowl they're in, the SEC fans are going to do everything they can to watch those games. So they're not just going to be representing their state or their team. That the fans are really interested in games, and I hope they take, and I think they will. I hope they want to win because we want them to win, and we take our time to kind of arrange things to watch these games. And I hope they understand that it is important to the fans, whether they're from Louisiana, whether they're from Tennessee, whether they're from Auburn or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're going to be watching and hope they do good.
Yeah, you know, the projections right now favor the SEC in almost every bowl game. Now, the one thing we don't know is who will play in these games, and that will be determined over the next 2 weeks. That's also going to determine the outcome of these games. Hey, great to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Let's continue with more calls. And Johnny is in Kentucky. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are great. Thank you.
Hey, you know, news came out either yesterday or the day before that Lynn Bowden Jr. is declaring for the NFL. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't blame him. He's obviously gotten advice that he will get a job, and if you're going to make money on the next level, go. Why stick around?
Fair enough. Also, with him departing, do you think Kentucky's going to have a bigger impact on his leaving or Joey Gatewood's arrival?
I think Joey Gatewood will fit in perfectly. He was a really good quarterback. Some have debated whether he got a fair shake or not in Malzahn's offense, but I think he's landed in a very good place.
So do you think he beats out Terry Wilson for QB1 then?
I don't know. I think it depends on Terry's recovery, and I think Terry's really good. I think Gatewood's a more versatile athlete, but Wilson has a lot of experience. Hey, we're up against a break. 1 hour to down, 3 to go. Stick around. The new Missouri head coach will. Low-hanging fruit.
I'm going to take the banana here.
There we go.
What is it, Nature's Candy Bar?
Nature's Candy Bar.
All
Two
right.
big ones right off the bat. This edition.
Bama needs to beat Michigan. Low-hanging fruit or truth?
Pretty accurate. Rarely does a game like that matter. This one does.
I'm a big fan of hiring the O-line coach as a head coach. I think there should be more of those. And, there's some doing pretty well right now. Yeah, it's sort of like having the drummer as your lead singer. So that's your Sam Pittman, Phil Collins comparison for the day.
So they're not going to lose one game in the ball season.
They probably will just because it's tough. But when I look at the matchups on paper, I think you should expect, or you should. The standard should be Baylor's.
I completely disagree with you. Matchup-wise, you are correct. Psychological makeup-wise, you are in outer space.
The Aggies have 5 losses against 3 number 1 teams, a number 4 team, and number 8 Auburn. That's a pretty strong statement, Paul. Do you think Gundy made a list of all the 7-5 teams that have ever played football?
I think he's right. Although, do you really want to be known as the best 7-5 team in history?
I mean, yeah, you're the best something, I guess.
He would like them to be the best 7-6 team in history.
And then it's like Harbaugh can stake his claim for being on that level. That
I'm not listening to this.
What would honestly, Paul? What would happen if Harbaugh and Michigan beat Nick Saban? And well, listen, I don't care what anybody says.
He's
it's
not
a bowl
listening.
game.
He already said he's not.
Paul,
listening.
you have to listen.
Welcome back, and a lot of conversation about new coaches and a lot of excitement in Columbia, Missouri, as we welcome in Coach Eli Drinkwitz, who grew up in Oklahoma and spent his college days in Arkansas and spent a lot of time in Arkansas. And we say hello to you, Coach. Thank you very much, and congratulations. You're a relatively young man, I believe, at 36 years old to be a head coach in the SEC, but it seems like you're ready to go.
Yes, sir. We're excited about the opportunity. It's an awesome place to be in Columbia, Missouri. I think our football program's got a chance to really take the next step. They've invested the resources in the new facilities, and they've got a growth mindset, and I'm fired up to be their head football coach. I know that.
Listen, I mean, you did an amazing job this year in Boone, North Carolina, getting your team in a position to go to a big bowl. You end up going down to New Orleans, and next thing you know, you're the head coach at the University of Missouri. Can you take us through the process? I mean, all of a sudden, you're coaching, you're trying to get you're trying to get your team a championship, and then you must get a call, and you go, wow, this is pretty interesting.
Well, the minds of men plan their ways, the Lord directs their steps. Our total focus last week was ring week. We knew that we were playing for a championship, and the most important thing for us was to finish the season the right way. And we won the championship. We were celebrating. I go in, check my phone, and my agent had left me a message, said that Missouri was on their way to meet with me and wanted to set up a meeting with me. My daughter was performing in the Nutcracker at 7 p.m., and so I said, well, I got to go watch the Nutcracker because I'm a father first, and then we'll figure all that stuff out. And then, I mean, as everybody understands in this business, things move incredibly fast. And so next thing you know, I'm on the Paul Finebaum show as the head coach of the SEC. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, does it?
No. I was thinking that you probably had to think as you were watching the Nutcracker, that would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Coach, it is exciting though, and we don't know much about you. I mean, I certainly, living in North Carolina, saw a lot of conversation about your games this year because a lot of my friends went there. But we had Coach Chiswick on yesterday, and you coached at Springdale where Gus Malzahn was. Yeah. You moved over to Auburn, and I know you had some very, very important responsibilities under Coach Chiswick at Auburn. Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, I distinctly remember one of my first jobs at Auburn was to drive up to Huntsville, Alabama, and pick up Coach Chiswick and drive him to the High School Coaches Association clinic. And I'll distinctly remember I took the wrong turn, and Coach Chiswick was in the passenger side, and Trooper Taylor was behind me. And so I cut a U-turn on the middle of the road, and Trooper Taylor still gives me crap about that. You can never cut a U-turn in the middle of the road with the head football coach of an SEC school, but that's when I knew I was going to be able to make it in this thing. You have to make tough decisions, and at that point I had to get him to where he needed to be, which was at the coaches clinic.
Yeah, listen, doesn't matter how you get there, just get the head coach there, because he was on his way or had already become the coach of the year and the national champion coach.
Yep.
So he couldn't be late. Coach, what did you learn from not only working down with Coach Chiswick but with Coach Malzahn?
Well, the thing I think I'll always take from Coach Chiswick is family first, and football is what we do. It's not who we are. Our first responsibilities are to be great husbands and great fathers, and I still to this day appreciate Coach Chiz and his leadership in that realm and how he always causes me to focus on putting our family first. Coach Malzahn's been a great mentor to me, and he's provided me wisdom and guidance throughout a lot of decisions, including on this one. I called him and asked him, he's been through some of these types of things before, and you never know what it's going to be like until you're in the middle of it, and in the middle of it I needed some advice, and so I called Coach, and he's always been there for me, and I respect him greatly for that.
So you get to Mizzou, obviously there's a million things to do. I've covered a lot of news conferences of first year coaches, obviously. With recruiting a week away, I would think that's paramount, but you also have to deal with the team. You have to build a staff. How do you prioritize many responsibilities?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I got to decide what's important versus what's urgent. You know, not everything that's urgent is important, and not everything that's important is urgent. So that's what we're deciphering through. The most important thing for me was yesterday getting in front of my football team and putting my arms around them and clearly portraying who I am as a person and who I am as a football coach to them. And then today it's been, you know, presenting myself to our alumni, to our fan base, to everybody that touches Mizzou football. And then, you know, I got my phone on me right now. I've been texting, calling, recruiting. I'm going to be on a plane later tonight and getting in people's homes. And that's what we got to do. And as we're doing that, then I've got to formulate the plan for what we're going to do with our staff and how we're going to fill that in and how we're going to continue to move Mizzou football forward and how we're going to compete for the SEC East. And at the end of the day, that's why they hired me to do this job. It's so we can compete in the SEC East. And we all know that if you're competing in the SEC East, then that means you're competing at the national level.
It seems like an awful lot to deal with, and I realize that comes with the territory, but there's only so much time in the day, and with recruiting paramount, how much staff do you have, and exactly who can you lean on?
Well, we've got a full recruiting staff. They're still in place, and there's guys here still that are helping me recruit, and that's what I'm leaning on for them to do right now. And then I got to do the heavy lifting. I mean, they don't pay us this kind of money for us to delegate it to other people. That's our jobs. So I'm out there in recruiting, and that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what I'm going to get done. And coffee's my best friend right now.
Be careful. Coach, you mentioned money, and that's not a subject that we often talk about, but it's well reported what you were making at Appalachian State, which, by the way, is a good salary. I mean,
no
most
doubt.
of us would be
Tremendous.
proud to be making that, but all of a sudden your salary quadruples.
Mm-hmm. I tell you what, my wife and my daughters are fired up about it. You know, I'll never forget Coach Malzahn was making a lot of money at Auburn, and I was a GA, and he would give me his credit card, and I'd go buy lunch and dinner or whatever for everybody. And he said, Eli, I don't know how much money I have in my bank account anyway. And that's really how I am too. I got no idea. But my wife does, and she calculates all that for us. And, you know, this was an opportunity of a lifetime, regardless of the finances. I'm a football coach. I was a 7th grade football coach in 2005. I'm going to coach football regardless. Now they just happen to pay me way too much money to do it. But I'm excited about the opportunity, and we're going to get it done. I know that.
By the way, how was the presentation of the Nutcracker Sunday afternoon?
Oh, my daughter is a star. You know, I don't know if anybody's been to the Nutcracker before, but there's a lot of dances, and she was on. It's about a 2.5-hour performance, and she was on stage for about 3.5 minutes. So it's similar to SEC football games with TV timeouts and all that kind of stuff. The actual game time's not nearly as what it should be, probably.
Well, Coach, the first time I saw you, I had you for a Tchaikovsky fan, so I knew that you would be able to converse in classical music, and certainly one of the great Christmas presentations, ballets of all time. Listen, I know you got a lot to do, and we really appreciate you making time. When things calm down, we'd love to visit and find out who's on your staff and the direction of your program. But right now, I'm sure you've got way too much bulging through your skull to be able to delineate too much of that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I look forward to getting back on here with you, Paul, and spreading the news about what we're going to be and who we're going to be at Mizzou, and I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Coach. Wow, what a great conversation. First conversation with Eli Drinkwitz, the new coach at the University of Missouri. Very cool first impression there. We will take a break. More of your phone calls. And let's get to the calls at 855-242-7285. Rocky is in New Jersey, and Rocky, go right ahead.
Oh, it's a great thrill to talk to you, Paul.
Thank you.
Something a little bit on the periphery of football for a second, Paul. It wasn't too long ago that I was tuned in, and Laura Rutledge was just coming back from her maternity and had the little baby girl, I believe it was, with you. And I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she said that, say hello to your goddaughter, and if that is so, I want to say this, Paul. That's a girl like Laura Rutledge, who's a beautiful girl on the outside, and it appears to me just as beautiful on the inside, would entrust you with being the godparent of her child, says more to me and to all your fans than anything else. And I think it's a great tribute to you as a man that a girl like Laura Rutledge would entrust her little girl to you. And I think everybody in Finebaum world should know that. And I'm just so glad I got a chance to give you a shout out, which you are deserving, and always thought the world of you, and now I'm convinced that a lot of other people do as well. Keep up the good work, Paul.
Rocky, thank you very much. Yeah, I happen to be up in New York today, and Laura is also, in addition to everything else she does, is co-hosting the Get Up show. So we were able to work together today and tomorrow, and she's doing great. Thank you for the kind words. I think everyone in this audience knows how all of us, especially me, feel about Laura, and it's been just an incredibly wonderful thing to see and to watch her become a mother. Thanks for the call. Andre is in Atlanta. Hello, Andre.
Coach, hey man, that was a great interview, Coach, with your new coach of Missouri, and
thank you.
Good luck to him. But listen, Coach, you're a straight shooter, and I'm an LSU fan. I know it, you know it. I don't hide it. But one thing about the SEC, and a lot of fans around the nation don't understand, in order to climb to the top of this ladder called the SEC Conference, you have to have a top 10 recruiting class 4 or 5 years in a row. If you don't have it, you can't get to the top of the conference. Now, in the East, if Georgia's at the top, Florida's climbing, and Tennessee is on the rise, where is it for Missouri to go, Coach?
You don't know. Missouri is one of those interesting schools, Andre, that the expectations are not as suffocating as other schools like Alabama, Florida, Georgia. So right. I mean, they can have a successful season with 8 or 9 wins, and I think that's why Coach Drinkwitz has an easier path than some people.
Well, they caught the SEC when Florida and Georgia and Tennessee was down, but now that those teams are rising, I just, and the same thing with Arkansas on the west side of the conference. I mean, they may be able to climb to the middle of the West, but come on, Coach, I can't see them getting to the top of the West. Can you?
Who, Arkansas or Missouri?
Yeah, Arkansas. Can you see them climbing to the top of the West? I can't.
No, I can't either. Not at all.
Look, and I don't have a dog in the fight, but what is Georgia going to do to change their offense around, Coach? I know that Coach Smart is getting some heat from the Bulldog Nation over here in Georgia, and I'm pretty sure Jake Fromm is feeling it too. But what are they going to do to change this offense around and come into the 2019, Coach? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to take a dynamic quarterback. When you think about Justin Fields leaving, obviously, Fromm, held on to that job. You also had Trevor Lawrence leave the state. You've got to do something different because I don't think this. I'm not saying Georgia is a disaster. I mean, they've had a really great program. They finished 5th 2 years in a row, but it still feels like they're underperforming.
Well, I don't even know how they let Deshaun Watson get away from here because he's from
Gainesville. Good point.
Trevor Lawrence is from Cartersville, which is about 25 miles, 30 miles north of Atlanta. And then Justin Fields is from Kennesaw. That's about 20 minutes north of Atlanta. So, they got a lot of talent that's leaving the state. And even Cam Newton, he's from over here on the southwest side of Atlanta, and he ended up at Florida and then Auburn. So they let a lot of good talent get out of here. But I just, the young man sounded so motivated with Missouri, but I guess he doesn't have that pressure on him that these other coaches do. And, Coach, a lot of coaches that have been offered jobs in the SEC, and they wouldn't take them because of who they have to recruit against and the recruiting tactics down here. But thanks for taking my call.
Yeah,
Coach
thank you.
Finebaum.
Listen, I mean, you can't let that be you. I mean, Missouri, I think, went around in circles for a while before landing on Coach Drinkwitz. It's been well reported that Jim Stoerkel recommended some names, and the board of curators did not like them. Arkansas went through a laborious process before ending up with Pittman. A lot of debate about both choices, although it seems like Drinkwitz is going over a little bit better in the eyes of the public than Sam Pittman. Glad to have you on. Thank you very, very much. Let's continue with Eastwood. Eastwood, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul.
Hey there.
I got a question. What do you think about this Michigan-Alabama bowl game, and who do you think it means more to? I know it means nothing to Alabama because they're used to playing for championships, but I think it's a big game for them.
Well, it's a big game because it is Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, but clearly the game means more to Michigan. They ended their season badly. They underperformed. Alabama did too, but the standard at Alabama is a little more excellence than it is at Michigan. So, I mean, Jim Harbaugh just needs to beat somebody important, and right now he's got the win over Brian Kelly this year, but a win over Nick Saban would really fade the heat for him. Squirrel is up next. Hey, Squirrel.
Man, how you doing today, Paul?
We're doing great.
I really appreciate you taking my call. And
thank you.
First, let me get some business out of the way first. I owe you an apology for my call last week. I was a little testy. I didn't appreciate you mocking Alabama's 12th ranking, and again, it was just one of them days. But I hope you'll accept my apology for being a little disrespectful.
All good.
Good deal. I knew it was. I'm just going to make it official. It's been kind of a rough week, man. Twitter banned me yesterday for 12 hours. I got the LSU fan base after me, but what was worse is I was called a disgruntled Finebaum lapdog on your show yesterday. Lapdog, that stung. Of all the things, I mean, I've had death threats on your show, but lapdog probably stung more than anything. Now I heard you say something about the Saban vote. What poll did he vote in? I didn't catch all of that.
That's the USA Today coaches poll.
And he voted his team fifth?
Yes.
Where should he have voted in himself, Paul?
Listen, I don't. I think Nick Saban can vote his team anywhere he wants. I like the fact that he put Alabama ahead of Georgia and Auburn. I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, he thinks Alabama is better than Georgia and Auburn, and not to say that he didn't lose the Auburn game, but I mean, again, if I was Saban, I would have put my team fifth. I might have put my team fourth if I was Saban. I don't know if you're just basing on best team, which is what the playoff committee is supposed to be about, best team. So I don't know. I just didn't see anything wrong with Saban voting fifth, and I just thought it was unusual that you might have made a comment on it. And another thing, for the next year, are you going to entertain these LSU fans with telling them, yes, that they're the IT program and they're the new destination program? I mean, Paul, they ain't even won a playoff game yet, and you're already crowning them the new great team of college football. I mean, that's kind of hard to understand.
I mean, listen, Squirrel, I don't know why you're being so persnickety about this.
I'm not persnickety, man. I'm not persnickety. I mean,
it seems like as an Alabama fan, you are just not used to being in this position.
No. Let's don't go that route because again.
Well, but I mean, you're poking fun at LSU. I mean, what's wrong with LSU being successful this year and enjoying the moment?
LSU is great this year. They've got a great team this year. But you know what? I didn't see no Heisman Trophy quarterback on the second team squad. I don't see them repeating this next year, much less for the next decade. So again, I'm just not willing to crown them, you know, the greatest thing since sliced bread until they win a damn playoff game. That's just my thoughts. If you want to worship them and put a crown on their head and think they're the
Squirrel, I'm not worshiping them at all. I'm giving them credit for what they've done.
I'm giving them credit, but they haven't done anything yet, Paul. So
yeah, they have. Squirrel, you're sounding like a typical Alabama fan.
No, here we go again. Thank you for taking my call. Aloha.
Man, listen, I'm not looking to cause trouble with Alabama fans, but I mean, you have to give out LSU its due. And by the way, speaking of LSU, some interesting news just coming out from Ross Dellinger, who of course has been with us many times. He says that Dave Aranda, who has been mentioned to Colorado State, so has Butch Jones, by the way, is also in the mix at UNLV. So it's possible that the highest paid assistant coach in the country and perhaps one of the most important coaches to the success of LSU could be leaving if he gets one of those two jobs. It's a story to keep your eyes on. Let's check in with Johnny in West Virginia. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Paul.
Hey there.
How you doing today?
All good. Thank you very much.
Hey, I just wanted to know what I'm a big West Virginia Mountaineer fan, and I just wanted to know what you think of Coach Brown. It's here with the Mountaineers that came from Troy. Just wanted to know what you thought about him.
I have been a fan of Neil Brown since he was a graduate assistant at Kentucky. I have friends who have worked with him who told me 10, 12 years ago he would be a big-time head coach, and I think he is well on his way. I think he's a great coach. Impressive resume, and I think he's done a really nice job.
Well, he seems like a real class act, and
he is.
Seems like a nice man, a nice family man, and we really like him a lot.
Well, you should, because he's the real thing. Hey, thank you for the call. We're heading to a break. More to come. We've already had Coach Drinkwitz on from Mizzou. More of your phone calls when we come back. So Squirrel called in to apologize for something he did the other day, guys. He ended up making it worse.
Does he need to apologize again? I mean, did anybody say that LSU's the new IT program of like moving forward? Are they not just enjoying success that LSU
You could just
has
hear
this
the
year?
bitterness coming through his veins.
It was seeping through the phone call.
Yeah.
Like, just
Yeah.
let it go. I'm a Georgia fan. They just beat us badly. And
Yeah.
Congratulations to LSU. I'm still happy for them.
Yeah, no, right? I mean, like, be happy that LSU, I mean, look, Alabama came back.
They did.
And that was impressive, but that was like a 20-point game.
You got out of hand in the first half, just almost like the way the Georgia game did.
Yeah.
And, Tua just fought back, unlike Georgia. But, Paul, are we going to hear this a lot more this coming summer, after how LSU beat Bama? The game next year is in Baton Rouge. Are we going to start hearing Bama fans be a little bit more resentful of LSU as the summer goes on going into next season?
Yeah, I don't know, Jabari. First of all, it's not even over yet this year. I don't know why Alabama fans are already quibbling. Do you?
I thought, now, listen, I could be wrong, but I thought this whole SEC, like you root for each other. I mean, you said you want to.
We
want LSU to
I don't
win
have a
here.
dog in the fight, but, LSU makes our lives better, right? At least on this show.
Yeah, it'd be great if they won. I think it'd be great. It'd be great for the conference. I mean, Alabama, you'd think just because you want to lose to the eventual champion.
I think Squirrel just, let it go, man. It's okay.
I don't know. I mean, Paul, we've been waiting to hear from some Bama fans, and all we've heard a lot about is the history they've had in this past decade. Well, guess what? The decade's over. I haven't heard a lot talking forward. Looking ahead. Hey, don't worry. Next year we play USC, we play Georgia, we play A&M and LSU, Auburn.
It gets worse because when Burrow
Tennessee's gonna be better.
Burrow wins the Heisman on Saturday, it's only going to get worse.
Heisman winner. Oh, what do we tell the Alabama fans here?
Well, I think they'll be fine. There's just a few outliers like Squirrel who are buried with their head in the sand.
Like a squirrel, maybe.
Does a squirrel maybe he's downgraded from squirrel to like ostrich.
That's what it is.
So when he calls in, he'll be ostrich from now on.
They get an ostrich picture.
Mary is up next in Birmingham. Hey, Mary.
Hey, Paul. Well, I did want to be a good Alabama fan and root for Jalen Hurts because I am so excited that he is going to New York. And I know that Joe Burrow has supposedly locked it in, but I just really am proud of Jalen. And he's done so much for Alabama, and we are very proud of him, and I'm excited for him to be up there. And as far as Alabama is concerned, No, I don't think we're the 13th ranking in all that, but we do have pride at stake, and I do believe that we will win against Michigan. So that's what I wanted to say. What do you think?
Thank you very, very much. Really great to hear from you. And I think we're all proud of Jalen. He won't win, but he'll have a memory for the rest of his life that he was a Heisman finalist, and that's pretty cool. Stanley is up next in Kentucky. Hello, Stanley.
Hello, Paul. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Listen, I just want to say happy holidays to you and yours.
Thank
I
you.
won't be able to contact you the rest of the month. I'll be tied up with work and family. So wishing you the merriest of Christmas and New Year's. I wanted to comment on Squirrel. That was one hell of an apology.
Yeah. I mean, when you call to apologize and you make it worse, that's not smart.
Yeah, it sounded like he was really butthurt. But anyway, I'm a diehard Alabama fan, crimson to the bone. I mean, tied till I die. But LSU has walked the dog this year. I mean, they deserve every kudo, every credit, every pat on the back that they can get. They have rose up above everybody. And so right now I'm saying, go Tigers.
Thank you, Stanley. Thanks for the kind words, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas as well. I realize we're now making that turn toward the middle of December. We'll lose a few people. We're here this week and next, and Christmas week we'll miss a day or two at the front end, and then reconvene in Atlanta right after Christmas. So we won't be taking much time off for the holidays because the bowl games, the semifinal games are just around the corner. Mike in Macon is up next. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Paul. Thank you for taking my call. I didn't know that calling somebody a lapdog was worse than a death threat. I mean, I would never use a death threat or insult somebody's family or anything like that. But, I mean, me and my Gator buddies, you know, they insult me as a Georgia fan all the time. I mean, they talk more smack in their sleep that's stronger than lapdogs. If you can't handle that, then, you know, your skin is just not thick enough to take it. And the bottom line is, as long as Alabama was on top and he could agree with you focusing on them because they were the dominant team, everything was just, you know, cool and nice and real sweet and agreeable. But now that it's the other way around and LSU is on top and Alabama is no longer a dynasty, you know, it's just hard to take. So, anyway, I feel sorry for the guy because I know he's hurting. I mean, I'm hurting after getting beat up by LSU so bad. But come on, man. Take it like a man. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Mike. Great to have you on, and let's continue. David is up next. Hey, David.
Hey, Paul.
Hi there.
I just wanted to call and say, I said you wanted to talk to some Bama fans today. I guess that's about 3 or 4 in the last few calls there, but I disagree with what Squirrel said. I don't understand why he's not giving LSU their due. They've done what they had to do, and I think I'm a Bama fan, but I'm going to be pulling for the Tigers. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, you know, I really
SEC makes sense to me.
Yeah, listen, David, my job here isn't to preach or lecture, but what is there not to like about the LSU Tigers?
I agree with you totally there. I mean, they've taken care of everybody they had to. I mean, they beat Bama, they beat Auburn, they beat everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
listen,
we could want them to bring the national championship back home to us and start our reign of terror again.
Yeah, no, I agree. But listen, if you're an Alabama fan, it's not like you had anything taken away from you or stolen from you. I mean, you got beat twice. Get over it.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't know. My wife thinks I might be a little crazy because I'm not just crying because Alabama didn't win everything this year. You're not going to win it every year, but you can still pull from teams in your conference. And we're
I'm glad to hear that because I think that's one thing that makes the SEC so unique. And I understand the Auburn-Alabama deal. Come on. I mean, when Auburn played for the national championship, Alabama fans didn't want them to win. And that's a different situation. But Alabama and LSU are on similar levels, and they ought to pull for each other.
Well,
glad to hear from you. Thanks very much. I do appreciate it. Let's go to Philip next up in Georgia. Hey, Philip, you're on the air.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Well, great. Thank you.
Appreciate you taking my call. Watch the show almost every day.
Well, thank you.
I was sitting here yesterday watching your show and jotting down some names of just trying to get us over the hump. I'm a big Dog fan, and I jotted down about 4 names here. I think would get us over the hump. Probably never happened, but I just thought I'd run by you and see what you think. Running back coach Herschel Walker, wide receiver coach Hines Ward, Matt Luke, offensive line. That's already happened. And a defensive guy that we all love. He's on your network to round out the offensive coordinating job. Gene Chiswick, what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, Chiswick would make a really good coach. Herschel's not going to be a coach, and you know, I think Kirby knows what he's doing. He just has to take a good long look, and I think this bowl game is really important for Kirby because should he lose the Sugar Bowl again, I think it sends this program spiraling a little bit out of control into the offseason. Great to have you on. Joey is in Iowa. Hello, Joey.
Hey, Paul. What's up?
We're doing great. Thank you. We're doing well.
I got 2 questions for you. One, what do you think about Notre Dame's bowl game? Like, do you think it's like really important to them to win?
I don't know how it could be, frankly, when you're playing Iowa State in the Camping World game in Orlando. I mean, it's not even the biggest game in Orlando.
Right. Then
I think it's a pretty terrible bowl game myself.
Definitely. And how do you feel about Virginia getting a better bowl game than Notre Dame when Notre Dame beat Virginia?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame may have gotten job there, may not have. I think Notre Dame would that have been the Orange Bowl?
Citrus Bowl.
The Citrus.
Or
no,
Orange
it's the Orange Bowl. I mean, I would have rather seen Florida and Notre Dame than Florida and Virginia. Is that the game, Florida and Virginia? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, and I think Florida and Notre Dame will be better because they're 2 top teams.
Listen. As a college football fan, I'm not really excited to see a team that lost by 50 to its rival in the ACC game. But for the life of me, I don't know how these bowl games are put together. It's very political. It's very conference oriented. The ACC does its deal. The SEC does its. Hey, thanks for the call. We're heading to a break. More of your phone calls and more guests. We've already had Coach Drinkwitz on from Missouri. We'll talk about the HBO special with Belichick and Saban. We'll take a deeper dive into Auburn hiring Chad Morris and your calls after this.
Let's welcome in the human opinion, Paul Finebaum. So, Paul, let's not kid ourselves or gin up fake tension for Saturday night. Chase and Justin and Jalen probably don't need to work on acceptance speeches. So what drama is there, if any, for Joe Burrow's coronation?
Well, we want the largest possible audience, David, so I'm going to just bloviate here for about 10 minutes. Truthfully, the only thing in question is whether this is the biggest landslide in Heisman history. Troy Smith, I think, had 92 or 91 or 2% of the vote.
91.6, yes.
Yeah, okay. I think Joe Burrow will obliterate that. When I voted on Sunday afternoon, I really didn't think about it for 2 seconds. And sometimes you do vacillate. The real question was who would be number 2. And I think Justin Fields will likely come in there. And Jalen Hurts, remarkably, is going to New York, the former backup starter turned backup quarterback at Alabama.
Burrow, of course, would be the first LSU Tiger to win it since Billy Cannon 60 years ago. All right, your old friend Lane Kiffin officially announced as the head coach of Ole Miss yesterday. Of course, he was in the SEC at Tennessee, your alma mater, for one short, stormy year. Yeah. That was a decade ago. Here's what he had to say about why he is returning to the conference.
Let's go back to the highest level now that we're really prepared for this better and haven't been the places that we've been, going through those obstacles. And that's so, we're in a much better position to win and to do everything right from top to bottom and not make some of those mistakes that we made 10 years ago at Tennessee.
All right, Lane certainly is battle-tested. The Rebels, though, won just 4 games last season, so there's work to do. What level of success can you see him having in Oxford?
I think he has a really good chance, primarily for this reason. He has a great quarterback in John Rice Plumlee. He's been outstanding, and you know, I just couldn't get over the fact, David, that this is Lane Kiffin's 5th head coaching job. Remember, he coached at the Raiders, and he's had 4 college coaching positions. He's only 44 years old, so like his first job must have been at 16 or something. But yeah, he keeps getting these jobs. And one thing that he does, he creates buzz. The people in the media love him. He talks to media members. He texts them. He tweets. He is a dream for people like me. Welcome back as we continue. It's been a really good show, and let's grab some more calls. Nader is in Louisiana. Hello, Nader.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
Oh, well, thank you.
Great. Paul, I just wanted to, take the time and appreciate the LSU season. And, it's been a magical run for us, and we've all enjoyed it. But I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I got to tell you, Paul, some of the finest tears I ever tasted in my life were the tears of the Texas Longhorns. And, that was great. Great way to start the season. And we rolled on. We went through Florida. Great experience in Tiger Stadium. Went on, took care of Auburn. But I got to tell you, Paul, I didn't think anything would top Texas until I finally tasted Bama tears. And I had a big, big gulp with that special ice from Sonic's filled with Bama tears, and they were glorious. I can't remember tasting something so sweet. And then, Paul, after the SEC championship, I just felt like I ran out, and that made me sad. But I just heard Squirrel on your show, and I got to tell you, Paul, that man just filled up my cup. I'm talking the big gulp, super duper cup. And I just want to thank him.
Thank you very much. Aiden is in Austin. You are on the air. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. I just wanted to get your take on Kellen Mond and, where Texas A&M is looking forward to now, now that Kellen Mond's going to his senior season. Do you think Jimbo Fisher will win a national title with A&M at some point, or are they, just a, medium, not so good, pretty good team, losing against Georgia to a close game and a blowout versus LSU?
Yeah, listen, I still am pretty bullish on Jimbo Fisher, but I think next year is critical. He has a much more palatable schedule. Doesn't have to deal with Clemson. Doesn't have to take on a road game at Georgia. I mean, you can't find many more difficult games than that. With assuming and including you still have Alabama, LSU, and Auburn on the schedule. But he's got 4 very winnable non-conference games. I think he needs to get to double digits this year to prove that he is worthy and has credibility. I think Kellen Mond is a really good quarterback, though. So I think he's got a chance. Thank you very much for the call. Wade is up next. How are you, Wade?
I'm doing well, Paul. How are you? I was calling in about the Bama LSU conversation, and Squirrel, he should have given LSU their props. They're a great football team this year, and they look like the best in the land. But for the next caller to call in and say that we should be pulling for LSU, and you agreed with it as well. As an Alabama fan, we're in direct competition with them through recruits. As a matter of fact, their football players went to our recruits in the stands trying to recruit them to LSU. So do I respect LSU? Yes, I do. Am I pulling for them? Absolutely not. I hope they get beat 100-0.
Listen, Wade, first of all, it doesn't make any difference who you pull for. It's not going to change the outcome. It's not going to change anyone's life. So you're welcome to do whatever you want. I get it. I deal with fans every day, and I've never completely bought into the kumbaya. I'm pulling for LSU because I admire Coach O, and I respect very much what they've done. But then again, contrary to popular belief, I'm really not a fan.
Well, I respect them too. I give them their respect. I did at the beginning of this statement, but at being in direct competition for recruits.
Well, wait, let me ask you a serious question here. Whether you're in direct competition or not, how does your pulling for them or pulling against them really change anything?
It doesn't.
Okay.
It's just part of the conversation.
One thing I do admire about you, Wade, you're honest. You don't have to sugarcoat it. Listen, cheer for anybody you want. Fine with me. Buddy is up next. Hey, Buddy.
Being in direct competition for recruits. Let me ask you a serious question here.
Okay, listen, you got it. When we go to you, have to pick it up. Ethan is up next in Mississippi. Ethan.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, I just a quick question I wanted to run by and see what your thoughts were. But what would you think about getting rid of the college playoff committee and just going back to the BCS ranking system and choosing the top 4 based on that for the playoff teams?
Listen, whether it's a good idea or not, it's not plausible. So it won't happen. Most people do not go backwards, and once you sign off on a 12-year deal with the college football playoff, there's no turning back. The only change that I see down the road is expanding it, not going backwards. Hey, thanks for the call. We have 2 hours to go. We hope you'll stick around. Shiny Penny Award. I mean, they got the guy that's been in the league. He's got coordinator experience everywhere. This is his 5th head coaching job, and I think he just turned 16. We're talking about Lane Kiffin, introduced earlier as the Ole Miss coach.
I think it's a splash higher, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's what the Ole Miss fan base needed. I mean, if you look, I haven't been on Twitter to look and listen and all those things, but you know, Paul, hiring a head coach is a lot about hope, right? He hadn't played one game there, and the fan base is going to have a lot of hope. Why? Because he's been not only in the league, he's been on this side of the league as the OC for Alabama, and when they broke a lot of offensive records, the success he's had at Alabama, and he's that guy that they know can recruit. He's going to bring a little bit of cachet, and the recruits are going to really like the fact that, you know what, this is Lane Kiffin in my living room. I think for Ole Miss, they win the hiring freeze, the hiring bonanza in the last 3 or 4 days.
Listen, Lane Kiffin may or may not be the same Lane Kiffin that you sat in a room with during that 2009 season, but that guy was definitely different than almost everyone else in your coaching room.
Yeah, he was out there. I mean, I'll say he was out there, and. You know, you hear stories. I can't say I know Lane very well. I know a lot of coaches in the league very well. I don't know Lane very well. I know he's a very smart football coach. I know he's a great play caller. I don't know what he's like day in and day out. You've heard some of the horror stories, and you've as a young coach. But you know what? I'm going to say this: as you get older, you learn, and you can't tell me spending that time with Nick Saban and the way he professionally runs things, you have to just inherently learn. I mean, you have to, if you don't get it, that's a waste of 3 years, and I think that probably helped him a lot.
No doubt. So those are the 3 hires, and then we have everyone else we think is intact.
You never know, man. After signing day, it may change, right?
Well, I mean, there's going to be a couple of professional openings that may or may not at least be connected to some coaches. So it isn't over completely, but it's amazing to me that we sit around in July and we think we know what's going to happen, and this year it didn't go that way.
No, and I will tell you this too, Paul. The coordinator carousel may change a great deal.
Well, let's go back a couple of days, and certainly you're trying to prepare for an important conference game, but schools are coming after you. Tell us how you dealt with all that.
Well, really just, put our team first, at FAU, and made sure we were prepared, and, then some other times some phone calls, and then eventually some in-person stuff, but everything was there. I obviously didn't leave the area, and it was done after work, so it was crazy. It was a crazy few days. And so it's great to be here at Ole Miss. They told me the biggest reason they hired me was you actually wrote a positive article about me. So thank you. You got me fired at USC, but now you got me hired again. We're equal.
One of these. Listen, I have wrongly gotten the blame for your dismissal at USC, and I won't bore the audience, but I happened to be on game day that morning talking about how they needed a change, and just so happened the next day they have. And you blame me for that, haven't you?
I do. You did call me Miley Cyrus of college football. That didn't help a whole lot. But no, it was actually, if you heard the press conference today, I talked about, obstacles that we go through in life, that may seem really bad at the time can be really good. That was obviously a very tough stage in time, getting fired there. But, that allowed me and opened a door to go to Nick Saban for 3 years. And had that not happened, I wouldn't be here. And I certainly wouldn't be as good as coach as I am today without having those 3 years. So, like I said, very thankful to Coach Saban and the opportunity he gave me, which really helped me get better. You go through 6 years, between the USC and here that, I think, as you get older and you have to reinvent yourself, you got to rework like we did, go back to scratch, that there's a lot of appreciation for it, that, hey, we did a lot to get here, versus, we did a lot before, but, I was very fortunate and got some really good breaks. Got to be with Coach Carroll and, got some jobs really young. My name certainly didn't hurt me in that, so I understand that. So I think that this was all a plan, and it really has made me appreciate, being on this level and this stage and what it means, to the team and to everyone around here. That was crazy at the airport. It looked like thousands of people to me, as we land the plane. And like I said today, I think a lot better tarmac than the one 6 years before that, that's for sure.
Welcome back. Well, we are here, and what an extraordinary conversation that was with Ken about the Saban-Belichick meeting tonight, documentary tonight, I should say. Tony is up next in Louisiana. Hello, Tony.
Hey, Paul. I want to ask you, did you see any problems with any of the SEC teams losing over the holidays?
Well, the only thing I don't know about the bowl games, and I don't think anybody knows right now, Tony. On paper, yeah, everyone looks great, but I have no idea what players are going to play or not. Do you?
That's true. That's true, too. And Ray got me kind of scattered there. Yeah, Ray said you hope LSU loses by 100 and nothing. We should be mad because y'all took y'all had takeout coach. But, it's like, the Saban went to Alabama. We had to swallow that,
Well, listen, Saban went to Miami. He didn't go to Alabama.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're right about that. But, we still had to swallow that we had him first, Now,
That's
we
true,
still got
yeah.
mad at Alabama for that, for taking him, But I'm just saying, a little competition doesn't hurt anybody. You're talking about, Louisiana went over there and tried to get your recruits and stuff like that,
No, it's a good point. Hey, listen, Tony, thank you very much. Derek is calling next. Hello, Derek.
Hey, Paul, what's going on?
We are doing great.
Hey.
Thank you.
I appreciate when you made time a couple weeks ago. I'm the only Alabama fan in Auburn, like Fine and Waldo. But the Alabama fans calling in, it's embarrassing, man. We lost. They called all off season and talk trash, but as soon as they lose, they want to call and whine or don't call it off. Take it. I just don't get them.
You don't get what?
Does it make sense to you?
No, it really doesn't. Hey, thanks for the call. William is up next. Hey, William.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are great.
Paul, I wanted to ask your opinion about something. I noticed Nick Saban, he's been there a while, and you always talked about his thumbprint being on the defense. And seems like in the past couple of years that, when you beat Alabama, you've seen the other team's quarterbacks. They always made these great throws. They were just unbelievable throws and catches. And that's what it took to beat Alabama. You go back to Manziel and Watson and all of them. But seems like in the past few years, receivers are just getting wide open, and we don't have nobody covering them. And you think the defensive coordinators are just getting that much smarter than Alabama, or do you think Saban's just kind of so loaded up with so much stuff he has to do, all these appearances and speaking engagements and stuff he's doing, that he's just not, his thumbprint ain't on that defense no more?
No, listen, I don't believe Nick Saban does anything. Nothing takes precedent over coaching. I can promise you that. People want to make a big deal about commercials and all that. He does that in the summertime. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything in the fall other than coach. Yeah, I just think he's, some of his. I think some of it's personnel. He has not had. Some of the players that he's had have been injured, and quite frankly, I'm not sure he's had the same numbers that he had 3 years ago when he had one of the best defenses I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm a great fan of his. My nephew played there. I had the opportunity to talk to Bear Bryant right before he died. I was shot with an accidental gunshot. He called me at home. I'm in the hospital. So I got big ties to Alabama. My daddy's a member of the Red Elephant Club. So I'm not putting Nick down or saying he's not doing his job. But, you just never see Alabama defense let receivers get so wide open. It's just shocking.
Great to have you on. Hey, we are heading toward a break. Still an hour and a half to go. We'll talk about the new hire at Auburn today. They hired Chad Morris, once the future of Arkansas. Now he may be the future of the Auburn offense. Brandon Marcello will join us next. Glad you're here. So some news out of Auburn today. Expected Chad Morris to name the offensive coordinator after a less than spectacular run in Fayetteville. Brandon Marcello with the story. Brandon, first of all, we know Chad Morris and Malzahn have been good friends for a long time, but tell us the backstory on how this came about.
Well, I think it was not necessarily in the works, but it was almost like a given. If Kenny Dillingham, Auburn's offensive coordinator, if he was going to leave, which certainly seemed very possible when Mike Norvell's name from Memphis started coming up for head coaching gigs, we kind of knew, and from talking to people, that if that were to happen, the first person Gus Malzahn would go after would be Chad Morris, his close friend who he's known since 2004. And I mean, as soon as I heard that Dillingham was leaving, I'm not kidding you, within like 10 minutes, I got a call saying, hey, the job is Chad Morris's, and they just got to work out the deal, and it's just a matter of time. And sure enough, about 24 hours later, they put pen to paper and got it all done.
So what is – I know what the answer to this is, but I can't wait to hear your answer. What does this mean to Gus Malzahn, who took over play calling and with great fanfare?
Yeah, I would be shocked if Gus Malzahn comes out and says, hey, I'm giving up play calling again, and flip-flops on that. I think it's going to be more of the same of what you saw this year. He's going to continue calling plays, but I think the difference with this hire is that he probably will be more willing to listen and implement ideas from Chad Morris than, say, maybe any of his other offensive coordinators he's ever had, including Rhett Lashley, Chip Lindsey, and Kenny Dillingham this past season. I don't think he's going to say, hey, Chad, you call the plays this season. I think Gus wants to continue to do that. I think they're going to try and work on improving their passing game, because it's obvious that the passing game has become the strength of this offense under Bo Nix, and they've got to get things a little bit more complex with their passing scheme to be able to move the ball down the field and score more points, which they kind of struggled with this season.
How does it affect recruiting? Not recruiting overall, but the recruiting of Chad Morris's son.
I've been getting a lot of questions about that. I'm fully expecting Chandler Morris, the four-star quarterback, to not come to Auburn. I know that he had visited here back during the Iron Bowl, was previously committed to Arkansas, obviously, and then decommitted once his dad got fired from there. But I suspect that he's going to consider Oklahoma and Virginia Tech. And, just from talking to folks, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up landing at OU.
Good place to go for a quarterback.
Yeah, it's I would say so.
Brandon, what's it been like a week and a half, nearly 2 weeks after the Iron Bowl? We know what that game meant to Alabama. What has it meant to Auburn?
It's meant a lot. It's given them some momentum recruiting-wise. I think the idea of winning 10 games has really kind of given the fan base some rejuvenation, so to speak. But, Auburn fans, or really any fans in the SEC, they always want more. So on Sunday when the bowl game matchups were announced, they were a little peeved off to see Alabama ahead of them in the Citrus Bowl. Auburn fans were kind of hoping for that, to see an Auburn-Michigan matchup. That didn't happen. So they're a little peeved off about that, but I think overall the fan base is pretty happy. Sometimes when you're just sitting around idly and there's no games going on, you just look for things to pick at. But I think the fan base is in a pretty good mood, and the general reactions, not just since the Iron Bowl, but since the hiring of Chad Morris here in the last 2 hours, and really the last 24 hours when it was reported that he was probably on his way, it's been pretty positive. They really, really like the idea of Chad Morris coming in and adding some ideas to this offense.
Let me ask you about the defensive side of the ball, Brandon, and certainly Kevin Steele is an amazing coach and has a wonderful reputation. Would you feel comfortable saying you think he will remain? And I bring that up only because there's always scuttlebutt out there about coaches, and his name has come up among the scuttlebutt.
Yeah, I haven't really heard anything about him seriously considering leaving. I think he's pretty comfortable at Auburn. His contract runs through, I think, 2021. I foresee him fulfilling that contract at the very least. And I think he's in a spot now where, one, I don't think he wants to leave to go be a head coach and try and build a program, so to speak. But two, if he were to be a head coach again, I think that maybe potentially that could be at Auburn someday, potentially. Let's say if things went completely south this past season, I think Kevin Steele would have been given a really hard look as a potential, not just interim coach, but potentially as the full-time coach. And I think he'd be willing to do that. But having said all that, I think he's happy being a defensive coordinator right now. I'd be surprised if anything changes between now and, the next signing day in February.
And you mentioned the bowl game, Brandon. How does all this get determined? How does Auburn go from Citrus to Outback? I mean, who makes these decisions?
Well, it used to be a lot of politicking, which there is still going on, but not so much anymore because you look at it these days, and the SEC has been pretty clear with the way things go from that standpoint. First, you get the New Year's Six bowls. Those are determined by rankings. And then outside that, the very first bowl that gets to pick an SEC team is the Citrus Bowl. And the Citrus Bowl can choose anybody. They could have picked Kentucky if they wanted to. They could have picked Mississippi State. But it's obvious that the Citrus Bowl saw the helmet value, so to speak, the logo value, and the personality value in Jim Harbaugh against Nick Saban and Michigan against Alabama in the Citrus Bowl, and they just dove at that opportunity instead of bringing Auburn on. Now, if they're going strictly by records or who beat who and everything, I think Auburn would have ended up in the Citrus Bowl. But when push came to shove, but it was totally the Citrus Bowl's idea to go, hey, let's go get Alabama and then let Outback get Auburn, or whoever wants Auburn, they can have them. But that's just kind of the reality of the situation. Money says a lot of things, not just in filling up the stadium and hotel rooms for the bowl game, but also TV ratings.
Finally, Brandon, any reaction in Auburn to Nick Saban voting Alabama ahead of both Georgia and Auburn in his coaches poll ballot?
Yeah, it's just been interesting. I don't think fans are really all that angry for some reason. I think Auburn fans, especially after Nick Saban said that the ending of the game was unfair and everything, it's been interesting. Fans have kind of started laughing at him a little bit more. I'm not saying I'm laughing at him. I'm saying the fans are, and they just don't take anything he's saying really seriously right now because Auburn won the game, and they see that poll and go, it doesn't really matter anymore. They own the bragging rights in the state, and anything Alabama says right now doesn't matter to them, including when they put down, Alabama above Auburn on his ballot.
Well, come on, Brandon. It wasn't fair.
Football's not fair, but you know what's not fair? Life's unfair sometimes. But I tell you what, I can't wait to see Nick Saban run that trick punt formation in the bowl game, because you know he's going to run it at some point, right?
Yeah, he's waiting for it. Not fair, unfair. He and Jim Harbaugh in a boat. Hey, Brandon, thank you for the information. Great to have you on.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Good stuff. We'll get some reaction to that. 855-242-7285. It's been a busy show. We had the new Missouri coach on, Eli Drinkwitz, of course, yesterday. Lane Train, your phone call.
The only way I know how to fix something is to go to work. And I believe that you can recruit, and in recruiting, you're going to have to recruit your team that you have now. You're going to have to recruit them to believe in what you're trying to get accomplished. You have to recruit the people that are going to come in to be part of the next team. You have to recruit coaches to come in. You know, since I got the job, I had over 400 or 500 text messages, and of those text messages, there's a lot of people in America that think about the Arkansas Razorbacks same way I do. And you might be shocked, you might not, to see some of the coaches that want to come here and be a part of Arkansas football and where they're at right now, and not unemployed, but great programs around the country. I've kind of always felt that way about Arkansas ever since I was a kid. And I want to tell you something. You guys were really good to me when I was here last time. You let me take my shoes off when I wanted to. Sometimes I'd take my socks off too, but y'all didn't seem to mind. You was good to me. I understand you're going to report like you need to report. I understand that too. But I'm going to go to work. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to hire a good football staff. We're trying to get them in as fast as we can. But to say I'm proud to be the head coach at Arkansas is an understatement. What we want is we want to be versatile. I love the RPO game. I like the quarterback read game. And I like 11, which one tight end, 3 wideouts. And I like to throw the flash screens and different things of that is into the RPO system. Again, when I was here the first time at Arkansas, we played bully ball, and it worked for us at times, and sometimes it didn't. It's like football. I think there's a time to bully people as well, but you better have the guys or you're going to try to bully somebody. So right now, it'd be more of a pin and pull, more of an RPO system, things where we can get angles and blocking and edges as fast as we can with either read style or pulling linemen to get out there.
Welcome back. Let's get some more calls in here after a number of guests. Nick is in Florida. Hey, Nick.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks for taking my call. Just to start off, I know you're an SEC guy, University of Tennessee alumnus, but I was hoping we could redirect the conversation into some ACC football just for a moment at least.
Of course.
So I'm a fifth-year senior at Florida State, and ever since Jimbo left the program about 2 years ago, it's been pretty much a downward spiral. But with the new hiring of Kenny Dillingham as well as Mike Norvell, I was wondering if fans like myself should feel a little bit of rejuvenation there, or if I should just start getting used to seeing the same old stuff that I've been seeing the last 2 years.
Listen, Nick, I think Dillingham has a really good reputation. I love Norvell. Really have always been impressed with him, and nobody can make a prediction that matters because that's all they are. But I think this time FSU has the right coach. I don't really know what happened wrong and why Taggart didn't work, but it didn't. But I think Norvell is a very experienced coach. He's been successful at a place that, quite frankly, I'm shocked at. I'm from Memphis, so I know that program pretty well, and I never thought I would see some of the things that I've seen from either Fuente and especially with Norvell. Thanks, Nick. I don't know what happened to you there, but I appreciate you calling. Mason is in Arkansas. You're on the air. Hey, Mason.
Hey, Paul. How are you today?
We are well. Thank you.
All right. I wanted to talk to you about the Sam Pittman hire. I think it shocked a lot of people, going from an O-line coach to a head coach here at Arkansas. But I want to tell you, I really love this guy. I've been watching videos of him on Twitter, and I think he's going to get the buy-in from the players.
Please explain, because I think a lot of people are concerned by the hire.
Yes, well, I've just listened to him talk to all the players. They took videos of his meeting, and he sounds like a good motivational guy. He seems like he cares about the players. I mean, a lot more than Chad did, at least. We found out that Chad really didn't have buy-in from the beginning. But I think Pittman's really going to get the same. I mean, I think he's the guy to do it. It's not going to. I don't think it's going to happen soon by any means because our rosters isn't in the spot it needs to be. But I think Pittman's the guy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Listen, Mason, I don't know, and I don't think there's any way I appreciate you being optimistic. I was pretty optimistic with Chad Morris, but in the end, we were wrong.
Yes, we were. What do you think about him at Auburn?
I don't think it's that big a deal. He's a good quarterback coach, but Gus Malzahn is going to be the play caller. So what's changed?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Paul. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm not sure at this point what Morris's credentials really are. Thank you for the call. Steve is in Georgia, and you are next up. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. I'm calling you from the high school football capital of the world, and we've got our Lowndes High School football team playing in the state championship Saturday night for the.
That's fantastic.
So, what I wanted to run by you and get your opinion on, Paul, was the major bowls have the luster of them has kind of been declining since the playoff system's been in. Wouldn't it make sense to take the four big bowl games like the Rose, the Orange, the Sugar, and maybe the Fiesta, and have the 8 teams have 2 in each one, and have a 18 playoff just using those bowls instead of the current playoff system?
Listen, I mean, these are all really good ideas, and I'm all for having fun talking about them. But the problem, Steve, is it's not going to change. This system is a $1 billion enterprise, and it's set in concrete. And once these guys have put it into reality, it's not coming back.
Yeah, so the money has a lot to do with it. Well, I just noticed a lot of the players are not wanting to play in the bowl game. They're staying out for the pros, and it just seems like it's taken away a lot of the luster of the bowl game.
Well, I totally agree with you on that. You are 100% correct. Hey, thank you for the call. Uncle Spike is up next. How are you, Spike?
Hey, man, how's it going?
It is going great. Thank you for asking.
You know what? I got a problem with Wade from Alabama.
Okay.
The reason is I live in Southwest Georgia. I'm surrounded by Florida fans, Bama fans, Auburn fans, you name it.
Okay.
This year, LSU is just fantastic. When he says he wants LSU to get beat by 1,000,000-0, I'm like, dude, you've been kicking my ass for the past 8 years. But I root for Bama and the SEC during the postseason. That's all I got to say.
Great to have you on. Thank you. Let's go to Garrett in the ATL. Hello, Garrett.
Hello, Paul. Thank you for taking my call. I've got 2 questions. I'll be very succinct.
You still there, Garrett? Okay. We lost Garrett. Anyway, we will not go to another call because we are closing in on the end of the hour. Again, we've had a really good show. Coach Drinkwich, but get used to that name. He's the new Missouri coach. He joined us earlier. great conversation with him, a number of other guests as well, including the producer of the new Belichick-Saban documentary. That airs at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight on HBO. More of your phone calls in the final hour at 855-242-7285. We welcome you back. Glad you're here on a Tuesday night. Great to be conversing with you. Some great guests as well. Let's get back to the calls. And Rob is in Florida. Hey, Rob. Good evening.
Hi, Paul. Just curious about the concern about Sam Pittman. It seems like the overwhelming support that's coming from former players and coaches that he's been with has all been very positive. I'm just curious why you're taking a negative stance on it.
Well, I'm not taking a negative pulse. I just, in my wildest dreams, never expected him to get the job. And, you have to wonder, here's a coach who's a well-known offensive lineman, but he's never been a coordinator. He's never been a head coach. And he's taking on the most downtrodden program in the SEC. So I think players are always going to be excited. Former players are always going to be excited. I think you have to have a reality check. He's taken over a disaster. Can he turn it around? That's all. That's the only question I'm asking.
I gotcha. Just curious. Based on what else is out there, I'm kind of glad we didn't get Kiffin, truthfully. I think he's a bigger question mark. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Listen, I am a commentator. I don't hire and fire coaches, but you just got through saying that Kiffin's a bigger question mark. This is he's had 4 head coaching positions. This is his 5th, and Pittman's never had a coordinator's position. So you tell me which one has more experience in running a program. And there's a lot involved in running a program. Let's continue with more calls, and Pam is up next. Hey, Pam.
Hey, Paul. You were asking a question earlier, and I wanted to tell you a little story and give you an answer to the question you asked, which was, what difference does it make who I'm pulling for? I'm a Clemson fan, no doubt about it. But 2 years ago, I didn't go to that Clemson game where we got beat by Alabama, but I did go to New Orleans 2 days after the game. And as I was walking the streets of New Orleans, my husband had on a Clemson hat. And I cannot tell you the number of people that came up to us and said, oh, my goodness, we were pulling for you, and we so much wanted you to beat Alabama. And I didn't think those LSU fans suddenly became Clemson fans. They became Clemson fans because they hate Alabama. And so I guess what I'm saying is the difference is, if you don't have the passion of the fan, you don't have college football. Wouldn't you say?
Listen, I have never thought it really mattered, Pam, who fans pulled for. I think it's a little overdone, and I think it's a personal choice. I don't tell you what to believe in. I shouldn't tell you who to cheer for. You can cheer for or against anyone you want.
But don't you think it matters that I cheer for someone? Otherwise, what is college football?
Well, no. Listen, I don't. You're right. There's no such thing as agnostic fans. But yeah, I think we all cheer for someone. I've covered some games where I really didn't care who won, but that was only really bad games. But any game that mattered, I genuinely care.
Yeah, I pulled for South Carolina all year long. And you know why? Because I wanted them to be ranked, because that was important to Clemson.
Sure, absolutely.
So I didn't love South Carolina, but I pulled for them. It didn't make any difference. But if I become uncaring about the game of football, and all the fans become uncaring, and whoever wins, people are going to stop buying tickets. It's all about passion.
That's a great point. Well, thank you very much for the call. David is in San Francisco on this Tuesday night. Hello, David.
Hi, good afternoon, Paul. Thank you so much for taking my call today. Listen, I'd love to get your reaction to really one question and one proposal as it relates to the whole selection committee process. And the question is whether you feel, as I do, of defensive performance I guess measured by points per game allowed, yards per game allowed, has just become too underweighted relative to margin of victory and strength of schedule. Or if you feel like the committee instead is merely acknowledging that the combination of rule changes and offensive schemes, that there are secular changes that have just naturally resulted in higher scoring offenses, and that they're not going to penalize you as much for a 52-35 victory. Any thoughts on the role of defensive performance? Because it just feels like it's not being weighted enough in the calculus.
No, I agree. I'm not much for calculus or any other math equation, but I've seen this committee. I mean, let's talk about Georgia for a second. Georgia really did not ever get penalized for the loss to a terrible South Carolina team. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. And really what got me thinking about it is, I was watching the Ohio State-Michigan game. I've been living in the Bay Area close to 30 years, but I'm born and bred in Cleveland, watching my Buckeyes. And in between broadcaster comments about how the Buckeyes are dominating the game, the paranoid element in me kept thinking, wow, they've given up 29 points. How's the committee going to reflect on that? And, of course, all I had to do was wait a few hours to watch Alabama careening towards giving up close to 100 points in their two losses. So it does feel like it's just becoming, much like basketball with small ball rule changes, no hip check. Defense has become an afterthought in, the calculation of who's on top. If you don't mind, I wonder, one quick proposal I want to offer up in your reaction to. Sure. You had a caller, I think it was yesterday or it might have been last week, and they were commenting on the seeding in the Final Four. And he made some reference to perhaps number one should play number two, and right. I wasn't exactly following what the thought process was, but it occurred to me, it got me thinking, and I'm wondering, why should there be any seeding or ranking? Maybe it should just be binary. You're either in the Final Four or you're not. The committee could just announce the four finalists, and much like the NBA lottery, line up and draw ping pong balls for seeding. And it gets rid of a lot of the nuanced controversy, for example, with an Ohio State LSU issue.
David, I understand what you're saying, but shouldn't you try to be number one versus number four? And if you are number one, shouldn't you get some benefit out of it as opposed to being chosen by a ping pong?
Well, I would respond two ways. Number one, when you reflect upon the college brackets in the Final Four in basketball, the matchups in the national semifinals are predetermined by bracket. You just don't know who's going to represent it. So there is a bit of a precedent there. And secondly, and this is more to my point, college football has a greater element of subjectivity than just about any team sport in terms of how champions are determined. The whole idea of selection committees and ranking. By eliminating my method of just limiting the subjectivity to one event, choosing the Final Four, as opposed to compounding subjectivity by ranking those four once again, I think it creates somewhat of a more fair and balanced system over time.
Listen, fascinating conversation. Rarely am I fighting uphill to keep up with a caller, but I was there. I don't think I'll be here. Cat Daddy is next.
Thanks for taking my call, Mr. Finebaum. I got a few takes on these new coaches. That fellow that hired at Arkansas, I watched his press conference. He looked more like a funeral director than a football coach. And I think the guys from Memphis, Novell, going down to Florida State is one of the best picks out there. And I like Chad Mars going to Auburn. And now Junior, he thinks Lane Kiffin going to Ole Miss is like telling Wayne Newton he's got to leave Las Vegas and play Branson, Missouri. You just don't expect Lane to want to go down to Ole Miss. You expect him to be at some big school. You know what I'm saying?
Now, I do know what you're saying, yeah.
But anyway, I wish him all good luck in the new jobs, and they done added old Mutzcamp up here and gave him some more money today. Lord have mercy, we're all mourning over that. It ain't been a
Muschamp got a new deal?
Yeah, they gonna give him $200,000 more for the years that he's got left. I said, I hope there's only one more year. But I ain't been this depressed since Boone's Farm quit making wine.
Good to hear from you, Cat Day. We're up against a break. More to come as we continue right here. We'll be right back.
There's no quarterback in college football playing better than the kid at Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. That is.
I don't agree with that, but go on. I'll let you keep talking.
I love it.
Whoa.
Burrow's okay.
You can't run from it.
Keep running.
There's no running back playing better in college football.
He's done.
And there's one defense. There's one defense in the country.
Oh, gee, did he really just say that? Come on.
Sit down.
Let me bring Marcus back.
I like this. Stay.
Yeah, so Paul Finebaum joining us now, and your reaction there to what Dan said, kind of similar to what Marcus did yesterday. Here's the thing. I think we know that Burrow's a runaway, but Greeny, what do you want to ask Paul?
What was that reaction?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm always amazed when Dan makes these mild statements. I remember last year, Tua was LeBron James. Now it's, who is Trevor Lawrence? Is he the Kobe of this generation?
I haven't pegged him yet.
If you're asking me to say something nice about Trevor Lawrence, I'm contractually obligated not to say anything good about Clemson. But listen, it's a fair conversation. I just didn't see Trevor Lawrence play anyone this year where I could make a value judgment. The last time I saw him in a competitive game was against the University of North Carolina, and prior to that it was Alabama. So Dan, you're welcome to your opinions. You're obviously here a lot more than I am.
Doesn't it get a little bit stale that we only go, well, he hasn't played the guys that other people have? Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that Clemson has not
he's been playing junior college teams all season.
I think that's a little extreme.
Okay.
But everyone knows that he hasn't played the schedule as Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow is I was the one 5 weeks ago, he said, runaway Heisman, give it to him, and he'll be the #1 pick. Before you were saying it, Paul. And so I think to take the shot at Trevor Lawrence and go like, I just haven't seen him play anybody. He dismantled Notre Dame and Alabama last year in the playoff. I mean, beat him by 27, beat him by 28.
Last year.
He's never lost.
He hasn't broken a sweat.
Having a better season.
He hasn't broken a sweat in 4 months.
He's having a better year this year than he had last year.
Desmond, one game to win. Who are you taking?
Let me be the voice of reason.
Oh, please.
Let me be the voice of reason. Coming into this season, the Heisman Trophy was Trevor Lawrence's to lose.
Correct.
Everyone loved Trevor Lawrence after he dismantled Alabama's defense. That should tell you how his season has gone so far this year. He's not even a finalist. So to say he's playing better than any quarterback, I think, is just a little far stretch. He is having a fantastic season. There's no doubt about that. The competition is the reason why that's why the committee put them at 3, okay? Of course. One game to go, though, Laura, to answer your question. I will have to go with Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow right now is more battle-tested this season.
I always liked you. Welcome back. Time for Fansville, brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Heisman, Joe Burrow likely to join this crowd of Heisman-winning QBs. Manziel was the last QB. Before that, Cam, Tebow, Warfel, Pat Sullivan, who passed away last week, and Steve Spurrier. And our next guest, when he came out of high school, was considered the best player in America out of Shreveport, Louisiana, went on to LSU where he starred. And we're delighted to welcome Josh Booty to the program to talk about the Tigers and the changing dynamics of LSU football. Josh, thank you very much. Great to catch up with you again. Good afternoon.
Hey, you too, Paul. It's always a pleasure, buddy. And, of course, I was in Atlanta this weekend, another awesome offensive performance. And, shoot, I couldn't be more proud, to be a Tiger this year. It's been a lot of fun to watch these boys play.
Listen, growing up in Louisiana, playing at that school, knowing the history as well as anyone, put into words, if you could, what this year has meant to LSU fans and former players for that matter.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable year from an offensive production standpoint. And, of course, going on the road early, winning that game at Texas, of course, with Burrow completing a huge play there in the fourth quarter that gave us the real get-over-the-hump play in that ball game. Of course, just the big wins. I mean, the Alabama win on the road was huge, and I know Tua was banged up, and they had a young defense, but to really to get over that hump, they beat us 8 years in a row. That was just such a huge victory for us to go through Tuscaloosa and do it that way this year. And we've got a lot of upperclassmen. We had four guys come back on the offensive line. We've got all these weapons all over the field, and to be a good quarterback, you're only as good as the people around you. And Burrows had the luxury of having not only a great play caller with the addition of Joe Brady, Ensminger and Brady really kind of co-coordinating the thing. Kind of reminds me of Kiffin and Sark. My brother played at SC under Pete Carroll, and they had that kind of a two-headed monster out there when things were going good. And, Brady's just brought a huge offensive element to, this team, which is loaded with upperclassmen and weapons galore. So that's been the funnest part of it. It's fun to watch these games when we used to watch LSU go, 3 yards, a cloud of dust, eye backfield stuff, double tight stuff. But now we can actually score some points, and it's a ton of fun.
Josh, you see quarterbacks differently than those of us who never played the position. When you watched Joe Burrow last year versus this year, I'm really interested to differentiate what you saw and what you are now seeing.
Well, just the evolution of the spread for sure. Giving him the opportunity to be dynamic opens up a lot of different throws for him, quick throws, deep throws. We're in 4 wide, 5 wide receiver sets. I love when we motion Clyde Edwards out, out of the backfield. And, he's won some one-on-one battles out there running routes too. And when he is in the backfield, we get him the ball as well. And so you have to cover really every blade of grass against them. And he ran this offense in high school. He ran it under Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's a buddy of mine. He's told me a lot about him before he ever came to really be the player that he is at LSU. And he said, man, he's such a gifted leader. He's got some eludability. That's a word, I guess, that not a lot of people would use. But pocket presence is unbelievable, quick release, timing, and accuracy. But it's all, the anticipation's there. He's got all the weapons, like I said. But being in this offense it's got to be so much fun for him. A year ago, I think in the red zone he threw 5 touchdowns all year. This year he's thrown 28. So we're spreading it out and finding weaknesses in defenses where LSU's never done that before, and so we're utilizing our strengths is what we're doing.
Josh, you played for Curly Hallman, then Nick Saban obviously came, or DiNardo. I can't remember which one. Was it DiNardo or
yeah.
DiNardo? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Curly Hallman was before that. I apologize. You played for DiNardo, and then Saban came on not long afterwards. I'm really interested because we all thought Nick Saban was the end-all, be-all, and he is one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach of all time. But what has that Ogeron meant to that program and to the people of your state?
Well, he's done it differently. I've known him. He recruited me at Miami back in the day. Of course, was with my brother under Pete Carroll at USC when my brother was playing QB out there. I've known him forever. Passionate Louisiana guy. And I think he's won over the hearts because he works his tail off. We all know that. He's a weight room guy. He's a bulldog. He's an in the trench guy. He's a get down and dirty type of guy. Brings the energy every day. So that's the culture in Louisiana, South Louisiana especially. They love fiery, competitive dudes who will knock down a brick wall or try to run through it. And that's what he brings to the table every day. What I think he has done that a lot of coaches that weren't Nick Saban that coached at LSU in the past was they were afraid or couldn't hire great assistants. And the evolution of this spread and bringing in Joe Brady from the Saints, who learned under Sean Payton and was at Penn State before that was a huge move for him because, as you know, Paul, and you watch Alabama close. we weren't able to score. I think we scored 10 points in the last 3 ball games against Alabama. They beat us in 2011 in the national championship game after we beat them 9-6 in a revenge game for them. But we weren't able to score points in the last real decade against Bama. And to win a championship, he knew he had to migrate to this. If you look at all these top teams that are at the top in these in these playoffs and even close to being in the playoffs. They have huge offensive production years. They all run the RPO. They all run the spread. I mean, Fields and Lawrence and Hurts and Burrow. I mean, they're all putting up unbelievable numbers, and it's fun to watch these offenses. So I think Orgeron knew where he had to go. It just, was he going to do it and allow them to, take over the offense? Les Miles didn't allow it, and I think that's what Orgeron's allowed it, and the fans are just going crazy because we're actually utilizing all of our talent.
People have forgotten how great LSU football has been over the years. What do you think, or what impact do you think this year, winning the championship or not, is going to have for the future of this program?
Well, it's always big when you win a championship. If you have a Heisman Trophy winner, you could piggyback that too because of marketing. And I go back to SC again. When Orgeron was there, you saw Leinart and Bush and, of course, Carson Palmer before Leinart. And it's like you piggyback this marketing engine that starts to roar and roll, and then it helps in recruiting. Wide receivers see, we can go there and catch the football. Even tight ends, Thaddeus Moss has had an awesome year. He broke the all-time single-season receptions record at LSU. So, I mean, you can go get kids and tell them the truth. When you're recruiting, in the past, LSU hadn't been able to tell these kids the truth that, we're going to put some offensive numbers up so that you can, not only have fun at the college level, but go into the NFL with a lot of game experience, catching the football, running with it after the catch, doing some of these fun things that other schools are doing. So now he can actually recruit to that. And I think that's going to be a huge thing. And there's going to be a tail to that. It's going to be, you're going to see it 2 and 3 years down the road because he's got the pick of the litter right now. I mean, he's doing a great job recruiting, and he's a bulldog in recruiting, but he's winning over families' hearts, especially in Louisiana. And now he's going outside of Louisiana, and we can recruit on a national level. And that's what Saban's been able to do so well. That's what Pete Carroll was able to do so well. You got to get to that level where you can recruit on a national level and get those 5 stars and 4 stars and stockpile your team. That's how you win championships year in, year out. You got to stockpile your team.
Finally, everything's going well for LSU. I mean, they really played the 2 best games of the season against A&M and against Georgia. Now you've got this 3-week break. As a player, help us understand how you stay sharp. We all know the importance of the next game, but still, you go home, you've got exams, you have Christmas. I mean, it would seem to me, to a layperson, it's pretty discombobulating.
It is to a certain degree, and sometimes, you fall flat on your face in bowl games. But this is such a big deal for LSU and the community, and Joe winning the Heisman potentially, which should happen, and the way that they've played this year and the big games and how the experience on the team and leadership and all that. So you got to rely on all that, to kind of carry you through these next 3 weeks and some of the downtime. And like you said, the school and off time and all that you have with the holidays going on. But there's a task at hand. It's right in front of your face. You're the number 1 team in the playoff rankings. There's a lot of pride that goes with that. Burrow's got 2 games left, hopefully. And those upperclassmen, they'll never play at LSU again. They'll never put on the purple and gold. I think that's what Orgeron, the competition, too, in practice is so big. I think that's something he takes from the days he coached under Pete, is you have to, bring it every day. Bring it every day. It's like, in baseball, and I was a pro baseball player, you had to bring it every day. You can't not have a good day or a good series. You have to bring it every day to be the best of the best of the best. And I think that's what he's brought to the table, is the competition that you have every day in practice will carry over. And that should carry over to the second and to the third week until the next game, is just the way that they compete in practice, the way they get after it on both sides of the ball. The defense is getting better. So they'll be really paying attention to the defense, too. So that makes the offense stronger as well, because the defense is trying to get better in these next 3 weeks. So now the offense has to keep it up as well. So I think those competitive practice environments will be huge for the Tigers.
Josh, great to have you on. Really a cool conversation. I hope you'll come back soon.
Oh, anytime, Bob. Appreciate it, bud. I appreciate it. Who do you like? Do you like my Tigers minus 13?
I do. I am all in. I mean, I'm going to be sounding like I grew up in Thibodeau before the end of the month.
That's funny, man. I like us minus 13. I know Jalen Hurts is dangerous, and he's a physical player, and he's beat LSU in the past. But I like my Tigers.
Hey, thanks, Josh. I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
You
Paul.
got a great one of the all-time great quarterbacks to come out of that state. He was the National Player of the Year, the biggest recruit in the state, going to LSU out of Shreveport. We will take a break. 30 minutes to go as we continue here on a Tuesday night.
And Lane is just going to be Lane. You know, he can try to button it up. He can say, well, I've changed, I've learned. But he just has these impulses to say and do all these things that are very interesting to us. And I asked him about it last year. I said, why do you think people are so much more interested in you than anybody else? Because I did a story when I was still working at Sports Illustrated on him, and the whole premise of the story is we picked him to do this story on because we knew you'd read it because it's about Lane. Anything about Lane sells. And he's like, I have no idea why people are so fascinated. But the reason is because he'll say some of the things that other coaches won't say. And I think he'll do that at Ole Miss. You know, there were the period he was at USC, he didn't do a lot of that because he didn't feel like you had to sell that program that hard to get good recruits, that they were already aware of it. But when he was the head coach at Tennessee, he was very out there, and, you know, whatever he needed to do to get the attention for the program, he was going to do. I guarantee he was going to do that at Ole Miss. And the fact that he really, I mean, let's be honest, that job opened because a guy pretended to pee on the field like a dog. That is the most college football thing that ever happened. And listen, as a sports writer, Lane Kiffin in Oxford is about as good as it gets. I think we all envisioned this as a national championship game when Jim Harbaugh got hired at Michigan, but this feels about right. And yeah, I'm curious to see what Alabama looks like in this game, because one of the things that has been Alabama's issue for a lot of this year, and we were focused on everything that's going on with the offense, but their defense had so many injuries. They're playing so many young guys. Now they've got a little break. They can coach those guys up a little more. I would not be shocked if we see them play a little bit better on defense, and then they take a big leap on that side of the ball next year. Now, obviously, the offense is probably going to have to take a little step back just because when you lose that much receiving talent and probably Tua, you're going to. But I think we're due to see Alabama look a little more like what we were used to seeing them look like pre-Tua.
Welcome back to the program. Final 30 minutes, so let's continue with more calls. And Barry is up next in Texas. Hey, Barry.
Hey, Paul. Appreciate you taking my call.
Great to have you on.
Hey, I just say up front, I'm a graduate and a fan of Alabama football. I just was curious. I've listened to you a little bit the last few days, off and on, and kind of making the comment that the door's shutting on Saban. I don't really agree with that, and I'm just curious why you're saying that. I mean, just think back to 2009. They won the national championship against Texas. The next year they lost 3 games, and then they went on to win just 4 more national championships in the span of 10 years. So I certainly don't know what the future holds, but I'm just curious as to why you're thinking that this year, I mean, they lost 2 games to 2 pretty good teams, and all of a sudden, it's like the Saban speech a couple of years ago. You're saying they're dead, buried, and gone.
Well, listen, I've been misquoted by pretty much everyone since I made that statement. The statement I made a week ago today was that the window is closing. I never said he was dead, and gone. He's won 2 of the last 7 national championships. That's more than anyone else other than Dabo Swinney. But, I think that is no longer constituting a dynasty. In the last 3 big games that he's had, got blown out by Clemson. He lost to LSU. And he lost to Auburn. That's not the indicators of somebody who is heading in the right direction. Listen, I'm pretty close to the Alabama program. I know all about all the injuries, but what you can't counter is the churn in the coaching staff and the fact that there are a lot of other programs that are doing as well or the same. I wouldn't say better, but Kirby Smart in Florida. Certainly Auburn has been able to keep up with Saban every other year or two, and now LSU.
Well, I would certainly not say LSU winning 1 out of 9 games makes them all of a sudden.
Well, you know, Barry, we're not giving lifetime achievement awards. We're talking about today and tomorrow and the future. I'm well aware of the past.
Yeah, well, I can't tell the future no more than you can, but I think the past would suggest that the door isn't about to shut just because they had an off year, which for most teams would be a wonderful season.
Barry, I'm not going to argue. It's your opinion, and mine is different. But Saban's 68 years old, and there are not many coaches who have won national championships after that point. I mean, I find myself in a unique position of being probably the biggest supporter and fan of Nick Saban in the media over the last 10 years, having to take questions like that. But I gave an opinion, and listen, everyone is entitled to their own. Maybe it's no better or worse. Maybe it is better than my opinion. I'm just making a statement. Swami is up next. How are you, Swami?
Hey, stranger. Hey, Paul, you know all this talk about Saban, how he's lost it and whatever. He ain't lost nothing, you know. I just think, Paul, he's made some bad decisions over the last 4 years, and probably could have cost him 2 national championships. And I think finally, when the book of Saban's, finally written, there's going to be a chapter in there that's not going to reflect too kindly on him. One is the firing of Lane Kiffin a week before the championship
Yeah,
game.
listen, Swami, I said it that day, and I'll continue to say it, that he blew it. Saban let ego, and for the process-oriented coach, he should have just held serve and gotten through the next week, and he would have had another national championship.
I agree totally. Here's Hurts having another voice in his ear a week for the championship game. It's crazy. And 2, his misuse of Tua, Paul, not only this year but last year. I mean, anybody saw Tua play knows this guy wasn't healthy. And anybody who's played competitive sports knows if you got an injury like he has, and I'm not going to say this is what happened to him, but he could have. You're going to overcompensate for that injury, maybe not
I agree.
protect
Listen,
yourself another way.
I think that's both of those are fair, and listen, Nick Saban is still the best coach in college football right now, but you can't. I don't really want to. I'm not interested in what he did in the past. I can recite Saban's record pretty accurately because I do it every day, but I said what I did because I don't like what I'm seeing.
All right, finally, Paul, one last thing. I think Coach Orgeron, he was absolutely right about Alabama. After the Bama game when he walked across the field to shake Saban's hand and whispered in his ear and said, "There's a new sheriff in town."
By the way, Joe Brady, the coach at LSU, has been named the Broyles Award winner as the top assistant coach in the country. Pretty remarkable ascension for Coach Brady. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. And Jim is in Ohio. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Paul. How you doing?
We're doing well.
I want to know, everybody, down in that area, LSU area, they're all Joe Burrow, how good he is and how great he is. But what are you going to do when he happens to get beat by Ohio State in the playoffs this year? Are they going to hate him this time because he's from Ohio?
Yeah, listen, we're having a little trouble with your phone. We're going to see if we can get you back where you don't sound like you're in a car wash. Phil is up next in North Carolina. Hello, Phil.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Paul, and appreciate your show and
thank you.
What it means to college football fans. It means a lot to me. I want to briefly share an experience and then ask a question. I'm watching the game Saturday with family and friends around, and had the same feeling in my gut that I had in 2015, which I think it was 2015, Mark Richt's final season. We drove to Athens, and Alabama was coming into town, and it was the first time since the Nixon administration, I think, that Alabama was an underdog, and they came into Athens. And they looked like the varsity scrimmaging against the junior varsity. And there's just a sense that there was this huge gap between Georgia's program and the standard of what was elite. And I looked at my wife, who loved Mark Richt. I said, this is going to get him fired because the distance is just too great. And the program is leaps and bounds ahead of where it was then. and recruiting-wise and in so many other respects. But watching the game on Saturday, there was just too much distance for me to feel comfortable between who Georgia was and who LSU was. Coach Smart, as 3 seasons in a row, just one loss in the regular season, 3 Eastern championships in a row. Those are great accomplishments. His seat shouldn't be hot or warm or tingly or anything, but it does have the feeling of a time in his tenure that some important decisions need to be made and directions taken. What are your thoughts about that and about his stomach for making those decisions?
Listen, I'm reluctant to tell Kirby Smart what to do. I'll let the fans do that, but I think he needs a paradigm shift. Because Kirby Smart was not brought in there and is not recruited to the level that he has recruited to come in second. He's been working to win championships, and I think that's what Georgia fans want. And I think Saturday was a clear example that he may not be able to get there unless he makes some changes.
Yeah, I think in some article I heard your reference to trying to be Alabama 2.0 and it's not working.
Right.
What Coach Saban did some evolving. He did some evolving when Tua came along and making use of him. And it may have been when he played Deshaun Watson twice at the national championship game and went 1-1 against him and realized his team was better than they were in every respect, except Deshaun Watson was in a system which accentuated his talents. And there's been some evolution in how Alabama approaches football. And I guess as a Georgia fan, I hope to see some of that evolution in Athens as well.
Great to have you on. Thank you very much. We are going to head to a break, our final one before we say goodnight. Please don't go anywhere. One more.
Heavy favorite. They play the national championship game in New Orleans. That's right down the road. They can walk to the game from Baton Rouge. And it's ironic to think about. This will be the 4th time, assuming LSU wins, that they'll have played a national championship or BCS game.
Yeah.
All 4 times would have been in New Orleans.
Yes, I saw that on the telecast of the game. So that's another reason why getting the #1 seed was so critical, right? We talked a lot about avoiding Clemson, but actually getting practically home field advantage was a big factor in this as well.
No doubt. And listen, I'm not saying that going to Phoenix is the end of the world, but Atlanta is a lot easier, especially for the fans.
For an SEC team, of course. Desmond, what was your biggest takeaway from the weekend?
Greeny, I'm not a big proponent of the transfer portal, but it works for 3 programs and 3 individuals. Joe Burrow transferred from Ohio State to LSU. You're looking at Jalen Hurts, transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma. And, of course, Justin Fields from Georgia to Ohio State. So the transfer portal worked for 3 programs and 3 individuals.
It's a glimpse of the future of the sport, right? Yeah. I mean, this is a glimpse into the future of the sport, something that you hold or that you cover so closely. And obviously the Hurts piece of this is fascinating.
It's huge. And I mean, look, going into this season, everybody kind of thought, are we going to get this magical story of Jalen Hurts being able to make it to the playoff again and then also face his former team, Alabama? Well, here's the thing. Alabama's not in the playoff, and Jalen Hurts is. And not only that, he's also going to be a Heisman finalist. He'll be in New York here this weekend. So it's incredible to see what's happened for him. And Paul, you said it, look, part of LSU's easy path is that they face Oklahoma. I don't know. I'm not saying that Oklahoma is going to beat LSU, but don't count Oklahoma out. With Lincoln Riley having time to prepare, he's one of the best offensive minds in the country. I mean,
by the way, when Jalen Hurts was at Alabama, he beat LSU every time.
Yeah, he did. He's familiar with that defense. And look, the offense for LSU has changed. The defense is still a similar scheme. They've got some dudes on that side of the ball.
Well, listen, as a player yourself, you would understand this. Everyone's talked about all the motivation that Dabo Swinney gets with Clemson. Yeah. Talk about motivation. Oklahoma's like the forgotten team in all of this. People are, everyone was talking, well, it's 3 teams and then whoever gets to play Oklahoma obviously has the easy path of the Big 12 champ. They have an experienced coach. They have an experienced quarterback. Is that an easy game for LSU?
It's not going to be an easy game because just like you said, they've been so disrespected this whole process. Everyone, even Saturday when the announcements came out, it was about LSU. It was about Ohio State. It was about Clemson. No one really talked about Oklahoma. So, Lincoln Riley is getting his guys ready like, hey, they don't respect us. No one's giving us a chance. Yeah. And like you said, they got Jalen Hurts, who's a gamer.
And I have to appeal to you on this. 4 weeks ago, right here, I said it's a time to say Kaddish for Oklahoma. Yes. I just got a call from my rabbi.
Welcome back. Final couple of minutes. Let's check in with Michael in Virginia. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Paul. How you doing tonight?
We are doing great. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time. Gator fan up here in Virginia. I'm excited about the game coming up. Man, if we don't win, though, I won't be able to go to church for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you're in a tough spot.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm excited about the game. But when the rankings came out, I was wondering if you thought maybe Florida got a little bit disrespected. I know we didn't move. We stayed the same, but they put 3 losses to Wisconsin, which I get the 2 Ohio State losses. But, I mean, that unranked Illinois loss, and then Oregon beating Utah, they jump up 7 spots, and they have an unranked Arizona State loss. I know that if we were 6, we would still be in the Orange Bowl, so I'm cool with that. I'm glad it didn't take us a big game. But do you feel like we kind of got a little disrespected for not moving up at least a little bit in the rankings?
Michael, I totally agree. I think Florida has been one of the most forgotten teams at the end of the college football season. Once they lost to Georgia, it's like they didn't exist. They lost to 2 tremendous teams, the number 1 team on the road and the number 5 team at a neutral site, and they were in both games, had a chance to win both games. And I mean, I don't know what it is. I think sometimes when you drop out of contention, you just get forgotten about by the public, but you shouldn't be forgotten about by that committee. They're supposed to take bias out of it.
Absolutely, yeah, and they've had an awesome year. So proud to be a Florida Gator, and I know good things coming yet ahead.
Thank you. I by the way, Scott Strickland, the AD at Florida, is on the committee, but he has to recuse himself. I didn't see 10-2. When you looked at the schedule, it just looked like there were too many landmines. A phenomenal job by Dan Mullen. Let's continue with more calls here in the final couple of minutes of the program. And Kirk is up next. Hey, Kirk.
Hey, Paul. Roll Tide. I'm just calling in as an alternative Bama view. I'm excited for things going on in the SEC. Joe Burrow is obviously one of those quarterbacks once in a lifetime. Congrats to him. Alabama loses to great quarterbacks like that from time to time. I'm way more excited that LSU won the SEC championship than I would be if Georgia had won. I like Georgia. I've got a lot of respect for them, but I felt like Georgia's been a bigger threat on the recruiting trail over the years. And, you know, with having Joe Burrow, that kind of puts LSU, and you still have some more to prove. Anybody who gets a once-in-a-lifetime quarterback, look at Cam Newton in Auburn. I mean, you can do great things with a great quarterback. So I'm excited for them. I'm going to have to pull for Jalen and Oklahoma in that first game, even though I'm certain that LSU is going to, I think, crush everybody. They're that good. And I'm excited Lane's at Ole Miss. All these things are helping the SEC, which makes my Saturdays more fun, because if you look back over the past 2 seasons, there were you always mention our 3 tough games that we lost, but, man, there were some blowouts. And they're not much fun to watch after a while. So I want to see the SEC be strong, and I'm excited for the future. And I think our game against Michigan is going to be a great opportunity to show that we're going to show up and play. I don't think, you know, we lost to LSU by a few points and Auburn by a few points, but we're not going to get blown out, and I believe that.
No, Kirk, I agree. Listen, thank you very, very much for the call. Really nice to have you on. Sky is in Birmingham. Hello, Sky.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. You know, I think you have an amazing show, a fantastic show, and it's so entertaining. It's so entertaining because I get to see these Alabama fans and listen to these Alabama fans. They're finally seeing the writing on the wall that the dynasty's over. I heard Brad Edwards of ESPN say that if Tua leaves, Alabama's probably looking at an 8-4 season next year, which is pretty remarkable. And it seems that Alabama fans, they don't want to acknowledge that they just lost the Iron Bowl and just got knocked out of the playoffs. They refuse to acknowledge that the last 3 games they played against ranked opponents, all 3 losses, Saban's defense gave up 44, 46, and 48 points. What is it going to take to convince
Well,
them
listen,
that
you
the
know, I
guys
had this
can go?
conversation a minute ago, and the guy was trying to tell me about 2009. I mean, that doesn't matter. Things were different then. I saw Brad Sunday. I wish I had known he had said that. I mean, the schedule is very difficult. Southern Cal, Georgia, obviously at LSU, but I don't see 8-4. But first of all, we need to know who the quarterback is going to be. Will it be
Absolutely.
Will it be Mac Jones? Will it be the freshman from California that everybody is salivating over, or will it be someone else?
What's most surprising is where Auburn was a little bit earlier in the season. Going into the season, all the experts said Auburn was going to go 7-5. They exceeded expectations, but we felt like we could go, even further. But anyway, the trajectory of the two programs, pretty ironic.
Scott, I hate to run. We are heading we're actually heading out the door. We'll do this again tomorrow. Thanks for being a part of the program. It's been a great show. Glad you're with us here on a Tuesday. We are live in New York, too.
Hey, Paul, I was looking at Jim's name on the TV screen. Got a little confused there.
And we won the championship. We were celebrating. I go in, check my phone, and my agent had left me a message, said that Missouri was on their way to meet with me and wanted to set up a meeting with me. My daughter was performing in the Nutcracker at 7 p.m., and so I said, well, I got to go watch the Nutcracker because I'm a father first, and then we'll figure all that stuff out. And then, as everybody understands in this business, things move incredibly fast. And so next thing you know, I'm on the Paul Finebaum show as the head coach of the SEC. It doesn't get much better than that, does it?
How was the presentation of the Nutcracker Sunday afternoon?
Oh, my daughter is a star.
I owe you an apology for my call last week. I was a little testy. I didn't appreciate you mocking Alabama's 12th ranking. And, again, it was just one of them days.
Squirrel called in to apologize for something he did the other day, guys. He ended up making it worse.
Does he need to apologize again? Did anybody say that LSU's the new IT program of moving forward? Are they not just enjoying success that LSU has this year?
You could just hear the bitterness coming through his veins. Listen, if you're an Alabama fan, it's not like you had anything taken away from you or stolen from you. You got beat twice. Get over it.
But I just heard Squirrel on your show, and I got to tell you, Paul, that man just filled up my cup. I'm talking the big gulp, super duper cup. And I just want to thank him.
Both being very camera shy, at least one in particular. How did you get them to loosen up and be authentic, which apparently comes off very, very true in this film?
Yes, I think it does. It's the most relaxed I've seen them on camera and most forthcoming in this sort of setting. And I think it was because we didn't make them uncomfortable by making it feel like a TV show.